Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the regular April meeting of the Willington Board of Education. It is April 12th, 2022, 7:01 p.m., and I'm going to call the meeting to order. First on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
My computer is showing a little thing where it asks about admitting people. I don't think I'm supposed to have that authority, so I didn't touch any.
So the way that we're doing this now, Donna, is that the board members are all co-presenters. It allows us to be able to mute and unmute ourselves at will. But
Okay.
yes, it does mean you'll get a little, maybe a little bing bing and a little thing that shows up. Phil will let people in and that will disappear. You don't have to do anything with it.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much.
A new way of managing it so that we're able to mute and unmute ourselves and not get trapped in mute, waving frantically at the screen trying to get someone's attention. Okay, next on our agenda is present to speak. The board welcomes comments from residents. At this time, we ask only that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and that you start with your name and address so that we can include those in the records. First, it's easier if people come on screen, turn on the video so that we know that you're interested in speaking. Jim Bulick, are you interested?
I'm interested. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. You have the floor.
Very good. I was very pleased to hear at our last meeting that we were going to put some links up to our curriculum, either curriculum that was being considered or curriculum that we approved. And I've just scanned the Board of Ed website. I don't see that yet. I assume that's on the list and will be up there shortly, so townspeople and parents can review it. That's all. Thank you. 12 Laurel Drive. I don't know if I said my street. Thank you.
Thank you. Others on the call? Mr. Toulis, I see you've come off mute. Are you interested in speaking?
Well, if you're interested in hearing from me, sure. Ralph Toulis, 47 Village Hill Road. I'm sure you all know I'm a member of the school building committee, in particular on the land evaluation committee. And one of the things I went looking for as far as a policy has to do with busing, age groups on a bus. If we combine the pre-K through 8 into one building, what is the board policy going to be with respect to the ages of the children on those buses? Are we going to wind up with overlapping routes? And further, all of this kind of affects the queuing space for buses at the school when they arrive and when they queue up in the afternoon for dismissal. That can affect the length of driveways. And as I'm sure you all know, most of Wellington is not flat. And the terrain makes site evaluation a bit of a challenge with respect to this particular issue. It's something that I would like the SBC to get some input from the board on, so that as we're looking at properties or as we're evaluating the Hall School property, we can consider these factors in that process. And that's really all I had to comment on.
Okay, thank you. Others who'd like to speak? Peter? Oh, you'll have to come off mute first.
Thank you, Michelle. Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. A couple of concerns I want to raise. I attended some of your previous meetings where concerns were raised by townspeople as well as Board of Ed members about the content of the curriculum. And my understanding then was that these were isolated incidents or random pieces of material. I tried to follow up on that. I thought there was going to be some access to it in the library that was requested at those previous meetings. But my understanding is that apparently it's not possible. So when you get to this agenda item, if you could address how we do that so we can better understand this issue, that would be appreciated. Secondly, at previous meetings, you had indicated it wasn't possible to share in your meeting minutes views expressed by the public, something that I think was alarming to everyone that's concerned about transparency. And you indicated that a policy would be forthcoming on how that would be managed by the Board of Ed. And if you could address that as well in agenda item 8 tonight, I would appreciate that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Are there others that would like to speak while we have time at the beginning of the meeting? We also have time at the end of the meeting as well. If so, please either take yourself off mute or turn your video on so that we can see you. The other thing you can do is you can raise your hand using the reactions button. Okay. Anyone else interested in speaking before we move on to the next agenda? Okay. So moving on, next is the chairman's report. I have happy to say that we're moving into spring and the end of the school year is in sight. We have a number of items on the agenda today that are typical for today. One of the things that I did want to call attention to is we've been having many committee meetings of various different committees of the board. And I was asked to explain for the record the way our committees work on the board for the public because there was some confusion. Almost every committee that we have has 3 board members on it, and the other 4 are not on that committee. So the committees would bring a proposal to the full board, and we have a chance to ask committee members questions. So there will be some discussion amongst board members. It's not because someone missed a meeting or was not paying attention. It's because it's normal for us to have 3 of our members dive deep, allow them to become the experts in an area and really learn more and go into greater detail than we could possibly do at these meetings, and then bring their recommendation back to the full board for our consideration at that time. So that's the way our committees operate. So I just wanted people to be clear that we're asking questions because that's the correct time for people not on the committee to ask questions. So I think it's important for us to allow folks to dive deeply into a topic and to trust their expertise and allow them to do some of the work that not all of us can be everything and do everything for everyone and be on every committee. So we delegate the work that way. That said, we do have some committee reports on tonight and we have a ton of new business. So when we get to the sections on all of the minutes, including the different committee minutes, I did want to note that it is perfectly acceptable for board members who are not present at a committee meeting, because most of us were not present at a committee meeting, to vote yes to accept the minutes from that meeting. It's not like it's a meeting that you missed of the full board that you are abstaining from. You are accepting the minutes rather than approving them for their accuracy because you weren't there. So I just wanted to put that in. I'll probably move to put them all in one so that we don't have 8 different motions to get through all of the different minutes that we have on this agenda. I believe that was it for this time around. Next on the agenda, let me jump to my right window here. Okay, next on the agenda is communications.
There were 2. The second one was not on your agenda as it went out. The second communication was from Sarah Reese. It was an email, and that was sent the day after your last board meeting, and it was copied to all of you. So Jenna Mitchell and Sarah Reese were the only communications that went out.
Or that came in, you mean?
Correct, sorry.
Just to be clear, the direction there. Okay. And then next on the agenda is Superintendent Report.
Yep. So I'll stop at the end of each of these. So if you have any questions, the Board of Education end of year projects, we are in the process now of evaluating what funds we have left, what we believe we'll have left at the end of the school year. And I just want to put a few things on your radar for potential funding should there be money in the budget at the end of the school year. These are items that are not currently budgeted, but could be addressed with end of the year funds, and they're important, or non-lapsing funds. The first item is Novus is creating a quote for us to put the Board of Ed in a position similar to the town to put us eligible for cyber insurance. The town completed a similar project already. It cost them, I think it was approximately $35,000. And basically to even be eligible for cyber insurance, you have to have all of these things in place: two-factor authentication, email system, firewall, all of these systems need to be in place. So it's something that I'm waiting for a quote for. If you get hacked and there's a ransom, it's going to be way more than the cost of completing this project. So one, I don't have a ballpark yet. All I'm telling you is that the towns was approximately $35,000. The second thing is our staff laptops are, I believe they're in their 4th year, and they are fading. And so this is something that I did not want to see in the budget because it's expensive. And so this is something that I will be recommending at some point, either through non-lapsing fund or end of the year funds. I'm waiting on quotes again from Novus. They solicit quotes for the specs that they think we should have, and they'll get the quotes, and we'll be comparing an outright purchase versus a lease. If we have funds at the end of the year, I would suggest the outright purchase, but I don't have the number yet. I would imagine it's going to be for 50-ish laptops. It's going to be in the $60,000 range. But again, I don't have the final numbers for the end of the year budget yet, but I think it's important to put those projects out there to let you know I am looking at those things, that they're on our radar, and that we'll see where we're at. Hopefully in May, we'll have a good idea where we're at. Any questions about that? Laura has her hand up.
Yep, Laura?
I may have missed it, and I'm figuring it probably is $35,000 a year for the cyber.
No. So the let's call it the fix, Laura, the things that you need to have in place for your infrastructure is the $35,000. That makes you then eligible to purchase cyber insurance. The cyber insurance is on top of that. And so when we initially started looking for quotes, we weren't even eligible. People wouldn't even consider us for it because of the risk that they have. You're not using two-factor authentication. When you log into your bank account from home and you have to put in the PIN, that type of situation, there's several of those checkpoints they want to see in place before they even say you're eligible. Because when you don't have those things in place, you're more likely to get hit. And so the cyber insurance would be on top of the cost of the repair. And the town is significantly smaller than us. So realize 35,000, I expect that potentially could be doubled. But I'm waiting to see what the cost of that process is. And it's important to protect our student data. It's important to protect our cyber infrastructure. All of those things are really important.
So that cost would be a one-time cost and then insurance on top. So, whatever
Correct.
we need to do to prepare, those don't include recurring costs.
That is correct. This is
Right.
just to put us in a situation, a one-time cost to get us eligible for it. And the way I've basically said it to Novus, and what I've requested is, I really want a quote that is going to put us in position. I don't want to hear, well, we did this, now we need to do these 3 more things to be eligible. What do we need to do to be eligible? That's what we're looking at.
And then the insurance itself, any idea of that cost?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
Honestly, the more things you have in place, the lower it goes. The less things you have in place on their, on their list, the higher the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Herb, did I see your hand? Go ahead, Herb.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are these anticipated expenditures at the end of the year? In the event that we have any extra money?
Correct.
Now, you have to come to the board for approval of these items. So these are anticipated and we'll just think about it.
Correct. They are. And these, there's money in insurance right now. You'll see that tonight. It's just because of our census, but you'll see that. So there's some funds left, and we've actually swung the other way with special education. You'll see that tonight. Two positives. I will say it's only April 12th. A lot can happen in a couple months, but I just wanted to prepare you in case I wasn't surprising you with something and to say, look, this is something I want to do tonight. I'm trying to prep you for that. And this would take a finance committee meeting to go through the quotes and get the information out, and then it would be a full board decision from there. Simply because it's not something that you had planned. I think that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you giving us the heads up instead of a surprise in 2 months.
Absolutely.
Are there additional questions?
I had one more.
Go ahead, Laura.
So with the staff laptops, I guess 2 questions. One, about how long do they typically last? And then I'm wondering why thinking towards purchase rather than lease?
So typically we do a 3-year lease, but I think last time we're beyond our 3-year lease already. They're in their 4th or 5th year, and I don't remember which it is, sorry. But we're starting to see them fade. And so obviously it's an important tool for our teachers to have. And so that's kind of the lifespan of these laptops is between 3 and 5 years. And we're at that point. The issue I see with the lease is then you're budgeting something. And if you have end of the year funds that could pay it for them outright, and you don't have to then budget for something next year, I think that's a better move. Meaning, so if a lease is $22,000 a year, and you pay for the first year lease with end of year funds this year, next year you would have to budget for that, the $22,000 for 23-24 and $22,000 for 24-25, whatever year it was, as opposed to buy them this year, you own them outright, and then you don't have to worry about any of the recurring costs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Next item.
Yep.
Okay, so the 22-23 budget process update, I just want to let you know, the Board of Finance approved the Board of Ed budget as it was. The 1.26% increase, nothing was changed. That was following the budget hearing. So the town meeting, so that's set for the budget referendum now, is scheduled for Tuesday, April 19th. I will not be there, and I asked Michelle to be in there in my place. My son is being recognized for an award, and I have to play dad for a little bit. I don't anticipate there's any questions at that time. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew I was not going to be there. The referendum will be on Tuesday, May 3rd. I believe that's the correct date. All right. The 21-22 school year update. Good news is that we've only had 4 COVID cases since the last board meeting. I just reported out on 1 tonight. That's good news. Having masks removed, everyone kind of was holding their breath, I think, and we've done well. The staff and students have been working very hard. I think everyone is looking forward to vacation. There's a lot of folks that are tired, and it's not just in education, but everyone is, you're seeing the toll now of mental health of people of, a couple of years of the pandemic. We have been busy, and I thought this was important tonight to share just a short list, just to say, you have board goals and here are the things we're working on. So portrait of the graduate, we're doing a curriculum overhaul. We've had policy revisions. We're doing ed specs. We're completing capital improvement projects. And we're finalizing the pipe burst work. We're trying to identify after school opportunities. We're in the middle of contract negotiations. We're planning PD. We're preparing for our data presentation and to add the regular work on top of it. So To say there's a lot going on is a little bit of an understatement, but I will say it's all exciting work. And the tasks that we're doing right now, and everyone's working very hard, are things that are going to help us move the district forward in many positive ways. So I think it's important to hear all those things, because it's really easy to go, well, what about this? And when you have 15 things already going on, add it to the pile. And our pile is pretty big right now, but it's all great stuff. Item D, the collaboration with the regional schools. I wanted to give you an update on this because I think this is important. As you know, the regional superintendents started a collaborative together. So we're working together with Great Schools Partnership, and we're discussing areas of improvement and alignment. We're working on our portrait of the graduate. We're actually aligning with some of the other districts. I will present on that later. And so that's one of the pieces that we're working on. The other piece is that we're working on common language and expectations for our 8th graders transitioning to E.O. Smith. I think this is long overdue, and from our conversations, it's really important. We had regional discussions with our administrators from all the towns, all the districts, and basically what happened from all that feedback and conversation, E.O. Smith was able to identify basically a common language and a process for class placement. And the point of it is to really reduce any bias that may exist as we make recommendations, and all the towns make recommendations for 9th graders for course level recommendations, A or B, what courses you're taking. It is one piece of a step, and Herb could speak to this, I'm sure, in the equity work that E.O. Smith is doing. And really the idea here is that students have equitable access to the same classes that they should be eligible for. Not everyone is eligible for an honors class, but if they are eligible, we want to make sure they have the opportunity to do it. And so they've included reviews with as far as gender, race, special education, socioeconomic status, and I would say importantly, the student's town of origin. They have it broken down now by how many students are going to each level by each town, and by gender. They're looking at a lot of data to make sure that they're providing access. And I think it's really helped our 8th grade teachers with placement and making recommendations. It's always the parents' right and students' right once they get there to make adjustments to change. But I think having that collaboration and consistency to make decisions, and it's really based on students' academic demonstration and potential, is the way to go. And we're moving in the right direction. So all of these feeder towns now have the same expectations as we place students. So that's a positive. It's only the start of the work, but I wanted to report out on it. Any questions on that one? Because that's a little new.
I have a question about it. So as this common language and expectations were developed, was it determined that Willington's views were in line, or did we expect less or more of our students than the other schools? Like when it all panned out, how did we stack up?
So we stack up pretty competitive. One of the things they saw was wherever students started, they didn't leave. Meaning if you started in what I'm going to call a B-level course, I think they're working on changing the names. And so if they started with we'll call it honors, A-level, B-level. If you started in honors, typically you stayed there. But if you started in A, you didn't always get into honors. And if you started in B, you stayed on that trajectory. And so that's one thing that they're really trying to change. And so Willington students weren't necessarily any different than anybody else. And that's why the placement was so important. There were a couple areas, foreign language was one of them, that was significantly different. The number of students that were going into Spanish 1 versus Spanish 2, Mansfield had higher numbers there. But for the most part, the spread for ELA, math, science, social studies was pretty consistent. But it helps identify inconsistencies. So why a student would go into an honors or A-level class for ELA, but not then go into a B-level class for social studies, there was no rhyme or reason for that. And so those are things to consider. Typically, if you're a decent reader and writer, and you're going into an honors level class or an A level class, you should probably be doing the same thing in social studies. And so students were trying to balance out like, hey, I don't want to take too many A level courses or honors. And so that's something that EO Smith is trying to balance out. But there was a couple of the areas that were inconsistent, and there were a couple areas that were super aligned across town.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Enrollment.
Okay, moving on.
All right, so Center School picked up a couple students. We're at 211 students at Center, and I almost said 500. Woof. 185 students at Hall School. That does include outplacements, by the way. We currently have a total of 396 students. And as you know, we've been monitoring incoming kindergarten students. I said this last time. It went up again. We are currently expecting 35 students, which is, again, high for April 12th before we've even, the signs are out on the green and out, but they're typically when we start pushing for information and gathering for a kindergarten orientation, our numbers creep up. That's before this number. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that just to make sure we don't need an additional teacher. And I will let you know as that goes. As far as staffing goes, we've had a couple big changes. We received a letter of resignation from the HMS band teacher, Tracy Canistrari. She's leaving education. She's actually going into private industry. She's doing that at the end of April. And so she's been with us for 4 years. She came in, she was actually one of the unique individuals that was interviewed by the interim superintendent and then interviewed by me. So she had a dual superintendent interview. She's going to be missed for sure. She's done great things for our program. The good news is we do already have several applicants that are interviewing for that position. So I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue that we'll get somebody in there. We also received a letter of resignation from the HMS Spanish teacher, Joanny Alvarado. She joined us in November of 2020. She took a position at UConn. And so I will say that position is going to be very hard to fill. We don't have any applicants at this point. It's been posted. It was posted on March 28th. And I'm going to give you a sense of what foreign language is right now. Anyone looking for a job, go get certified in foreign language. We posted on March 28th. It's been 2 weeks from yesterday. Typically, when you post, you stay in the top 10 for a couple weeks. There are 35 other postings in front of us today. That means there are 35 openings for foreign language that are posted on CT REAP. That's a lot. And what I'm going to say is it's a shortage area. And long term, we may need to consider doing something different. And different meaning take a very drastic approach so we can provide a foreign language without relying on that certified person. If we could provide a program and the state will allow it and have a paraprofessional or a regular certified teacher in there, not foreign language certified, and then they're just facilitating a program, that might be something we need to do, because 0 applicants so far. We're 35, 36 on the list. That's not good. So something to think about. Our hires, let me finish first, Laura. We hired someone to replace Joan Cordier. We actually hired Amanda Pilati. She's going to be the new secretary in Center School. She is currently working in the business office here at the town. She'll be transitioning to Center School at the end of the month. I did not recruit her. This is something that Amanda was looking to do. I will tell you, it was a very challenging decision because Amanda has done great work here in the town. I work very closely with her with contracts. Whoever fills her spot there is going to have some big shoes to fill. So we welcome her again, but it's a tough loss to that business office. Thanks, Laura, for letting me finish that.
Laura, did I see your hand?
Yeah. I just, as far as filling the Spanish position, and I know that is a really high needs area. Just when I came to Hall back in 2002, our Spanish teacher was from Spain, and she was here on some type of a, transfer type thing. I was wondering if those types of programs still exist, if that might be some type of, a possibility.
to look into that. I don't know. Laura, do you know if we sent somebody there? I don't think
I
we
don't,
did.
it was my first year. She was here just for my first year. I could ask, Liz Peasy might know.
I can text her.
Okay.
I think Hartford is doing something like that, looking for bilingual teachers. So Phil, you may want to contact Hartford and see, maybe with Puerto Rico, maybe a partnership there.
Yeah, the problem is everyone is.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, this is the State Department of Ed knows this is a huge issue. And not only, we're talking about teaching a foreign language, right? And your point about just having bilingual staff in a classroom and how important it is right now in certain, towns.
Mhm.
The number of staff you need that are either bilingual or to teach the foreign language is tremendous. It's just a huge number.
Go ahead, Ann.
When is the Spanish teacher leaving? I didn't catch, is she here for the year or no?
Same time as the band teacher. So
Band.
they're both the end of April. Yep.
Okay,
They gave
thank
me
you.
the 30 days.
Thank you.
Yep. We're already trying to fill that hole.
Mhm.
Additional questions on this?
Phil, is there some legislation dealing with teacher certification now where they're removing some of the barriers that a teacher has to have to qualify for a certificate?
Yeah, they're trying to provide more flexibility to districts, and it started really with COVID, just trying to get people in the door. And honestly, if you get someone that, and this is where I struggle, because if you get a K-6 teacher who's certified, or someone, whatever certification it is, if they have through 8th grade, and they're fluent in Spanish, or they can teach vocabulary, why would we not allow them to do that if the district was okay with that?
Yeah,
As long as we could provide an appropriate program. The certification sometimes is what gets in the way. And so there are things they're trying to do. They're trying to address it. They try and do quicker, programs for people that are trying to get certification in a shortage area. There's just not enough of them.
and I think in some cases, you don't have to be a full-time teacher either.
Absolutely. That's right.
Time or 20 hours or whatever.
Well, and some of these folks, you can get incentive pay if it's a shortage area. Superintendents some districts have significant leeway. You can just put them where you want to keep them. I can, in our contract, I think I can give an additional 3 years of experience. So if someone comes in with a shortage area and they can go and work in Glastonbury for $115,000 at top step, we're not going to compete with that. So.
Tracy?
Yeah, I would just, it concerns me, and I know it concerns everybody, but it concerns me to hear that the Spanish teacher will be leaving before the end of the school year, because when that happened in 2020, it was a struggle, especially because the pandemic came after that.
Yeah.
The substitute was not, the long-term substitute was, or the substitute was in there for a few months, was not fluent in Spanish. So then when students went to Spanish in E.O. Smith, who were 8th graders, there was a struggle to catch up. So if we could be, is there a way we could be creative to maybe find a Spanish major from UConn or Eastern or somewhere who could be the substitute? Even if they don't have that college degree, so that there's the experience of the language, and it's not, I know if I walked into a Spanish class and tried to teach Spanish as a substitute, I'd be lost. And so would the students, just to keep that up for those kids that are going to be going to high school, especially the 8th graders.
Honestly, right now we're looking at programs, Tracy, because like I said, everybody is looking for someone. So I don't disagree with you any. I have a long-term sub that I can park in there. she's not fluent in Spanish. You know, I could, when Ken Craig was here at the middle school, and I think that was the year that happened, we started looking at Rosetta Stone as an option, and you know, do we put students on? And that's why I say you might need to consider something that's really independent with oversight that's drastic, that is program based. Rosetta Stone is not cheap, but if $30,000 is for a program to provide a Spanish program is better than not having a certified teacher in there or for months, it might be something we have to consider. You know, I'm just crossing my fingers. You know, that somebody comes out of the woodwork like happened last time. I just can't guarantee it. And that's why we're trying to, you know, turn over all the rocks and see if we can find someone to come in there that will maintain the experience for our students.
Bill, have you considered reaching out to some of the bilingual churches to see if they're aware of somebody who would be willing to do, whether permanent or temporary, something like that, combined with Rosetta Stone or Babbel or some of the other programs that are out there? You might be able to have something that's more instructional with, say, the Rosetta Stone, but something that's conversational and to keep the kids on the right track with somebody who is actually fluent.
Right. Listen, I'm willing to reach out to wherever we can to try and find someone. So any of these ideas are good. We can follow up on them.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on.
I'm on G, correct? Insurance claim, yes. So the center school insurance claim, all 3 classrooms now that were impacted by the pipe burst have been retiled. They look great. It's like shiny new. The company worked over 3 separate weekends for us so that they avoided interrupting school, which I appreciated. Next week over vacation, they're going to be completing the asbestos work. So the abatement project in that hallway will be completely done. Everything's going to be bagged and covered. Once all of that is cleared, then they will install the carpet. So that will be done in time for all the students and staff to come back from vacation. The abatement project cost is about $18,500. It's not covered by insurance, but we do have money in the budget to cover the remediation, which is good. And it's ironically coming out of the insurance line, but it's not insurance like health insurance. The preschool furniture and the supplies that were lost from the flood, all damaged, are all out, trashed, and they've been ordered. So the new stuff has been ordered, so it's slowly trickling in. There are distribution problems, so some of our furniture has been slower than other pieces, but it will continue to come in. We know what the order total was, so we should have a total cost to the board by the time your May meeting rolls around. We should know, because all of the projects should be completed and all of the claim reimbursement should have been returned to the board. So the furniture numbers in supplies is like in the 20,000 range, and all of that would be covered by insurance.
Any questions on insurance? Okay, let's move on to the April financial report.
Okay. I can't see you for a moment, so just bear with me for a second, please. So this is the April financial report. I'm just going to highlight the significant changes to the programs. There's really 5 programs I want to highlight. One is, I just shared this. So program 1 had a significant drop because we ordered $20,000 worth of furniture. That's going to come back. So the preschool materials that were ruined, they'll be refunded through insurance. Program 2, again, the health teacher's not encumbered. That's why you see so much money there. We encumbered Power School and then ordered some various supplies. So you can see the balance in there. Program 3 went up because Donna has now factored in, we don't have the final payment, but we've factored in the final excess cost grant payment that is a reimbursement from the state. So we've factored that in. We had 2 paraprofessionals last month that had left. So they are unencumbered right now. Those will be encumbered once we hire some folks. We're doing interviews now. And then we've done some psychological evaluations, which are, on the more expensive side. The other 2 programs that I wanted to highlight were program 9 and 10. Program 9, we encumbered the funds for School Messenger, which is our website, and our emergency communication system. It's 2-pronged. So both of those been done. And we also did our final school choice tuition. So we believe we're all done with that now. The funds that you see in program 10 there, the savings, it's actually not over budgeted. I talked to Donna tonight about this, and it's really just our census has changed. So when we budgeted, some of the folks that we've hired, or some of the folks that left that took insurance, when we hired new folks, they didn't take insurance. And when you're talking about $25,000 for a family, for insurance, and then someone comes in and they waive insurance, that's significant. So that number will be adjusted a little bit by the end of the year, but there's going to be some significant savings in that line. And that's what I'm looking for. The other reason that that line has bounced back is we had a student who was outplaced who moved. And so that makes a significant difference as well. Again, oh, sorry, that's not that line. It's the up top. It was the program 3. But there's a lot of money in that fringe right now, and it's really the people that move. Questions about the financial report?
I have one quick question, Phil. Oh, I'm sorry. Go in.
School choice, are those the students that are tuitioned out to magnets and others?
They're not tuitioned out, their choice. So
Okay.
But it is a magnet school. So typical magnet school tuition is, $4,500 on the cheapest side to $7,000-ish.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Donna.
Phil, I believe it was last time there was some transportation costs because of a homelessness situation. Has that been resolved?
So you can see that program is still in the negative. I mean, there is some money that we're expecting back from Region 19 for diesel. But that the transportation program is in the negative because of homeless transportation. So there's still, there's some students that are still in that same situation, and we make adjustments wherever we can to make it as reasonable as possible. The situations we have right now are very reasonable, but there's still a cost to it. And that we're required to pay it. What I'm hoping, is that that may bounce back. We're talking with M&J right now. We may lose a bus just because of staffing, which might not be a bad thing because we get a little bit of money back, but also it doesn't hurt us because we don't have a lot of kids riding the bus right now, and we could maintain to have it's a half a bus left. So that might bounce back just from that alone. For May and June, but we continue to watch it and look for creative solutions. I will tell you that's Marsha McGinley as our Pupil Services Director, and anybody who's being transported in or out, we collaborate with other districts on this because they have the same issues. And if someone's going from Tallinn to another place, we try and make sure that we collaborate with them and keeps all of our costs down.
Any more questions on the financial report? Okay, moving on to committee reports. Someone on the policy committee want to have anything to say about where you are? I know we've got some particular policies.
You want me to start and then you can chime in? Does that work for the policy group? Is that easiest?
Sure.
They've been super busy. They have updated policies for the full board review tonight on the agenda. So what's on the agenda is in addition. They've also reviewed sexual harassment and discrimination. They've reviewed dress code that they're working on. They actually had a presentation from students for dress code. They've worked on the restraint and seclusion policy. They started discussions about the meeting minutes and vote recording and public participation in board meetings. That was that last night? It seems like it was a long time ago. That was last night. And so the next policies they're reviewing, they're going to finalize a couple policies. They have to have more discussions about the ones I just talked about. And then I'm bringing forward a couple policies. One is administering medication, and that's a Narcan policy. That's something that's being suggested. And then they need to update the policy for use of private vehicles by district employees that are on school business. And their next meeting is May 16th. So anything you want to add to that policy committee?
Did you
No.
mention the policy that we had, Phil, on public participation in board meetings? Yeah.
Yeah,
Policy
that was-
committee has been very busy, as Phil has pointed out. We've covered a lot of policies.
It's
Mm.
taking longer because Brianna is asking for a zillion questions because it's new to me. So thank everybody for their patience and understanding and wonderful explanations.
Mhm.
It's a lot, but very important. And I love being a part of it.
Okay, seeing no additional questions on that, let's talk to the curriculum committee. We've also got some items from you on the agenda later on. Is there anything you want to highlight now?
I would just like to say that Erin and Kristen and Erica, the folks that are writing, and the teachers are all collaborating to write a huge amount of curriculum, as you will have seen and will continue to see. So I just want to thank them for all their really hard work. We're doing a small part of it by approving it. I think the hard work is with the staff and everything they're doing. And I think it all looks great. And I think it's really gonna benefit our programs to have all this new curriculum.
Their last meeting was set number 3. They reviewed set 3. And I did send it out, I think, to the full board and said, if you have any feedback, there'll be more conversation about that later on. And then they also talked about, they reviewed, and you can see this on the YouTube, discussed, and I showed them some of the websites that were out there and what was on the different various town websites for posting curriculums, and that's on the agenda later on. Sorry, Laura, did I steal your thunder?
No, that's fine. I'm looking at my notes here to not repeat anything that's been said. Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, some of the things that we discussed, one was, what is appropriate amount to get out to the whole board to look at, because it is, as Anna was saying, it's an amazing amount of work that Erin and Kristen and the staff have been doing on the curriculum. So we did discuss to just approve, I think, one at a time. So we'll give you 3, but we'll just not try to have you approve 2 at one time. That was a piece we were looking at. We also discussed how to communicate the curriculum on the website. And so we started looking at what other districts are doing as far as communicating their curricula, because these documents are not user-friendly if you're not a teacher. So that was a big piece of how will we put this on to the website for people to understand what's going on with the curriculum. Another thing we talked about was Common Sense Media. That's a website where you can evaluate, look at the books. So there are, so many resources there, but if you have a concern with certain books, that was a website to look at. And I think one takeaway, two other things, sorry. The phonics will be added, so that's not in there yet. So that's something to remember as you're looking at this, that is a piece that will be added to it. The science of reading, which is the research that on how students read. That's so important. That's a new piece of what we're adding, realizing that there are pieces of that were not in our old curriculum. So, we talk about a lot of the sources were there, the resources were already in the curriculum, like that's the good stuff. What we're doing is adding to it what it was missing. And one point that was made that I thought was important too was that some of the resources that were in the curriculum before have been taken out because they have perpetuated stereotypes. So it's a critical process that Erin and Kristen have been going through of looking at what we have, what's good, what needs to be added to make it better, what needs to be taken out because there are things that that were not very good. So I think that, one of my messages, because we have people very concerned about the curriculum as we should be, in our community. And the work that Erin and Kristen and the staff are doing to improve the curriculum is pretty phenomenal. So I've just been incredibly impressed with the organization, the speed, the dedication, what's been going on to get this curriculum put in place really in a very efficient and quick manner. I think that's all I had there in my notes.
Tracy, was there something else you wanted to say?
Oh, I just wanted to say that when we're reviewing as a committee, the curriculum, but also as the board and the public as well, that we have to remember that the Wellington Public Schools staff put faith in us to put, as a board, to put policies in place that are fair and appropriate. And then we have to give back that faith and trust to the professionals who are writing our curriculum, who've been to the workshops and are doing the work, and the trust that they are professionals and they are putting in there what needs to be in there to give our students the best education, as well as meeting our board goals and our Portrait of a Graduate goals as well.
Thank you, Tracy. Herb, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. Phil, someone mentioned the fact that there's a third copy, a third curriculum that has been distributed. I don't think I have seen that. Is that available to board members?
Didn't I? Can any board member verify that for me? I don't have my email up.
I can
Herb,
look.
I can check, Herb, but I'm pretty sure I sent it out with an email. And if I didn't, I will do that tomorrow. But I thought I did it the day
I want a
after.
hard copy. I want a hard copy of it.
Yep. Yeah, and anybody that wants a hard copy, just contact Brenda. She'll make copies for you so you can pull them out.
Yeah.
Bill, can I just be put on a standing list that
Yes.
that I get the hard copy, and just like other things, she can just text me and say it's ready for pickup. That
She'll let
way
you know.
she knows to do
Yep,
it automatically
absolutely.
and I'm not behind. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. I will confirm that I sent that out, but I think I did.
It was emailed on March 31st
Thank you.
to the whole board.
Although I believe that's not the one we are voting on tonight. We're voting on the number 2.
That is correct.
So the one
That is
that we haven't, that you haven't seen yet, Herb, we're not voting on tonight. That's for next month.
Correct.
So you'll
And the
have a full
idea was
month
that,
to look at it.
sorry, that the committee really wanted to give you as much time as possible to go through it, because I think the committee understands it's 250 pages. So thank you, Erin, for that.
Okay, seeing no more questions, let's move on to new business. Phil?
So, yep, the non-renewal notification. So any teacher that receives a non-renewal notice, they have to receive a communication from the superintendent by May 1st. It doesn't come from the Board of Ed, it comes through me. However, the Board of Ed needs to vote to direct me to give written notice to any qualifying teacher that their contract is not going to be renewed for the following year. So the weird thing about this is, at this point, the board can't have any information about details regarding any non-renewals. I can't tell you who, the what. Because anyone who is being non-renewed, they have a right to request a hearing before the board after receiving the notification. So it's a process that is guided by state statute. It's exactly what I'm following. I can't guarantee that there's going to be a non-renewal, but what I will tell you is I need you to have a vote tonight to allow me to at least make the communication should it be needed.
Okay, so I move that we allow Superintendent Stevens to issue any necessary non-renewal notifications.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Herb. Are there additional questions or discussion? Tracy?
Have the teachers been notified already, Phil?
They
No.
can't be. They can't be notified until we vote until after that. So sometime between now and May, if
But
necessary.
You explain the rationale behind what we've just done or will do.
Absolutely. Anytime there's a non-renewal, there is a significant amount of communication leading up to that non-renewal. All you're voting on tonight is not that you're going to say that there is going to be a non-renewal. All you're voting on is giving me the ability to send out the notification to an individual saying that they are going to be non-renewed. That's the communication where they find out.
Okay. Additional questions? Anne, and then Brianna, and then Tracy.
Does this include positions that are not necessary because classes have been reduced?
No, that's a reduction in force and there are none.
Okay.
Brianna?
How will we know if there is a hearing to be held or action on this?
You will be notified. We will schedule that hearing.
We'll be contacted to schedule it around our availability, Brianna. So it's not a, you will show up at this day at this time. So Brenda will contact all of us to schedule that if it's necessary.
Correct.
Tracy?
Just to clarify, this is not related to any budgetary reasons,
No,
okay? Because I don't like those.
nope. This is purely evaluation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no further questions, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to give Superintendent Stevens the authority to issue any non-renewal notices as necessary, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Abstentions? Nay? Passes unanimously. Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Next one is Portrait of a Graduate overview.
All right, I know you've been stewing about this one and you want some information, so I'm here to give you some information tonight. The district steering committee, and I'm going to share my screen here. So you can see, I think this went out to you already.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, if anybody pops in, because I just have my
I'll take
participant
care of it.
covered.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So the district steering committee is the group that's been working on the creation of our Portrait of Graduate. They have spent a significant amount of time identifying, researching, and discussing attributes that we really think our graduates should possess to be successful in high school and really beyond that. We've had numerous meetings and conversations and some just clarifying, lots of time clarifying. And they've identified 4 attributes that we believe represent the community and the community's beliefs. So this work is really part of our alignment to the regional schools and E.O. Smith. And we've obviously looked at Mansfield. Ashford does not have one yet, but we do have some alignment with Mansfield, and we definitely have alignment with E.O. Smith's. And really, this is to ensure that as students matriculate from the middle school, that to high school, that they have the 21st century skills that they need to be successful. The staff has had the opportunity to provide input on our work, and I'll go through that in a minute. And we thought that before the steering committee continued moving forward, with establishing rubrics that we wanted to share this with the board. So it's your first look at it. We have 4 attributes that we've identified. Communicate, and that is to connect with others and share ideas. We have care, by demonstrating empathy and respect to be a responsible community member. Critically think, and that's to build understanding and or generate innovative solutions. And collaborate, and that's to achieve common goals. So I know people are like, why didn't you write think critically? And we joked about it, that we have the 4 C's, and this is to foresee the future. That was our yes,
Cute.
right. But so we left it as critically think, and there's a reason we did that. So each of them started with a C. So underneath each of the attributes, there are indicators that help them, that attribute come to life and what we were specifically looking for. And then our next step will be to create rubrics based upon these, and really they're checkpoints. So I can't tell you exactly what the grades are going to be, but basically, what do we expect by the time a student leaves 2nd grade? What will they have mastered, or where will they be on this continuum for these attributes? Grade 2, grade 4, grade 6, and then when they leave us at grade 8, where will they be? I will tell you that I almost called you Dr. Erin. You're not there yet, but Erin Conley is on this committee, and so she's very aware of what these are, and she's building these in and clearly identifying in curriculum what the opportunities are for students, and so it's clearly identified for teachers, when they're working on communication and when they're working on collaboration. So she's building that into the curriculum, because we want them to achieve those expectations when they leave for high school. I will show you, this is a rough draft of our current graphic. Typically, when you do a portrait of a graduate, you create a graphic. This is just a rough draft, and honestly, this was my chicken scratch that started into what people have been building. It is in the shape of Wellington. If you did not know what that outline was, it is in the shape of Wellington. And basically, it'll continue to undergo modifications. Things like, we want the communicate word to be bigger, the care word to be bigger. The idea here is that there's a ladder to success at the top, and you need all of these things along the way to achieve success. And, this is just the draft that Great Schools Partnership has helped. We gave them some ideas, and this is what they've pulled together so far. These things are directly tied to things that are going to be in your ed specs, collaborative spaces. This is the direction, the 21st century skills that we want students to have, the type of furniture that you put into, your ed specs. It's all tied to this. And so we will be looking for approval on the attributes in May. You don't need to, we're not looking for it tonight. We're really looking for your feedback. And let me just go back to this piece here. And this is really the big piece. So, what falls under this is really how it meets the main attribute. So you use a variety of mediums to clearly convey information. And we did look at some models that were out there for Portrait of the Graduate, and we made these our own. There was duplication. If there was duplication, we took it away. But this is what the start will be. So questions about what you see, and I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see you. Questions about any of the Portrait of the Graduate work?
Anne?
Phil, you mentioned that you were collaborating with the other local schools. Are theirs very similar or pretty similar, or what would you say?
They're very similar. So our care is a little bit different. However, what we have built out in the indicators is very much aligned. And so, I think Mansfield's was like citizen of the world. And we didn't think that was going to mean much to some of our elementary students. And the idea of care for whoever it is, that's what we would be building out into the rubrics and within the indicators. So there is significant alignments with, and we had those in front of us. Basically, our process when we went through and we built out our attributes first, and then we put the indicators underneath. And when we built the indicators out, we actually copied and pasted in a bunch of other towns that if they had similar things, and it helped us just process. We didn't copy them. We just used them as a starting point for conversation, and then we eliminated a bunch and then merged. And some were, you know, better than others. And some we didn't feel like applied to what we wanted to do, what our vision was for Wellington. So there is significant alignment though.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Donna had her hand up first and then Herb.
Yeah, Donna has a whole bunch of questions and concerns. One is, I looked at this and I said, I don't think that it's concise enough. The other thing is, can you please give me an example of under point 3B, demonstrate divergent and flexible thinking? To me, that sounds like a personality disorder.
Sorry.
I'm going to unmute Erin Conley so she can answer that. She's on the committee, so you don't have to hear from Phil the whole time.
Phil, would you mind just pulling it up again so I could see
No problem.
the point in context? So you
It's
said
about-
3.
It's about thinking critically.
Okay, critically
It's
thinking,
this
yeah.
one. Yep.
So again, so that takes, I guess it looks different depending on the context, but to give you a solid understanding of what that could look like, so critically think to build understanding. So and these you'll see go hand in hand. So when students are collaborating in a group and having a discussion, this would look like one student having an opinion and another student having a counter argument to that opinion, but them being able to demonstrate this divergent thinking, right? And being able to say, okay, well, I agree with this point of what you said, and this other child saying, I agree with this point of what you said, and them coming to really that's where the flexibility of the divergence comes in, and coming to a consensus. So you could, they really, a lot of these indicators and competencies go hand in hand and are operating simultaneously as they're working. But that's one example of how you're demonstrating divergent and flexible thinking, is typically when you're working with people, and or you might have a strong belief around something and you come to a new learning is presented or new evidence is presented, which challenges that belief. And so that being able to take that and being flexible and kind of saying, where does this fit in my belief system? And how is this going to change the way I think, if at all? But another example of where that critical thinking and really thinking flexibly and divergent would be two examples I would give. I'm
sorry. I need you to describe divergent thinking without using the word divergent so that I understand what you're, I'm not.
So a different direction, different from, or a different direction from. So it could be direction or just different than.
Can I add on?
Go ahead, Laura.
Right now I'm teaching a class on creativity. And when I saw this critically think to build understanding and generate innovative solutions, to me, it immediately said both critical thinking and creativity. And in my class, we talk about divergent thinking as coming up with different ways of doing things. So for example, you may have some problem. An example, from an article that we read, you've got students doing graffiti on a building's wall, and it's a problem. So trying to come up with a solution to not have that graffiti. So, there's lots of different things you could do. You could do security systems, or, people patrol it, or this or that. The solution that the students actually came up with was to paint a mural on that wall. And when they did that, the folks who were doing graffiti recognized like that ownership and that artwork, and the graffiti stopped. So the divergent thinking is also just coming up with a different way of doing something. So it's a different way of thinking about something. And it can be ideas that people are expressing, or it can be, innovating, coming up with different solutions. So one of the things I saw in number 3 is really, this is both critical thinking and creative, or creativity. So, but does that help you, Donna, with the idea of divergent thinking?
It does, and I actually like adding the creative.
That was going to be my suggestion. Creativity should be in there.
And that way, when I'm looking at these points, I would have said for point 1, communicate clearly. And I know you're trying to stick with C's, so I can't do that right now. Point 2, be kind and responsible. Point 3, the ability to think critically or critical thinking. And I appreciate the creative. Be able to collaborate with others, but also the next one should be citizenship, be a good citizen. But part of what our students need to be able to do, not only when they leave us, but through life, is work independently. Not everything is a group project. They need to be able to work independently. And I'm not sure that that is in any of this.
Anne, did I see your hand up? Did you have a response? You've got to come off mute.
Donna, I had one example. Once again, it's the creativity aspect of it. Brainstorming is an excellent way to do an activity with divergent and flexible thinking, where you take away all judgment and just come up with many, many, many different ideas and then go back and assess them, like Laura was saying, in problem solving or creating something.
Go ahead, Erin.
I just want to add that some of this will become more concrete too as the rubrics are developed, because the rubrics are how these are measured. So I think it'll become more concrete because that's how we measure these indicators. So as those are developed, I also think this will become more clear, like these indicators will become clearer.
Just to follow up on that, Erin, the fact that you're going to be developing rubrics does not mean that these are going to be put on report cards and kids are going to be given a score on them on a rubric on their report cards, are they?
No, and actually the rubrics are built. These are integrated. Actually, I have to say, after we've been working on, this was actually prior to me coming aboard, but it was really exciting because as we, in the same week, we had the POG, we solidified these as our first draft. And then as we were writing, the reading and writing curriculum very much intertwines these. So that was like, it's very naturally in there. We did a science professional development for teachers, and the whole science professional development, these were all hit in our science. It was very exciting to see. These are just very naturally in our curriculum. So they'll be measured through performance tasks built into the curriculum. It is not an additional piece at all. It's very much integrated and embedded in the curriculum and through performance tasks and units.
Thank you. Laura?
So I was just thinking about what Donna said about citizenship, because that's so incredibly important. But I do think, and also the ability to work independently, but looking at care, I think Phil did say, like, Mansfield called that citizenship. And I do see that one tying into citizenship. And the first one, using emotional intelligence to make appropriate choices related to the needs of self and others. So it is understanding what you need and the kinds of things that help you to reach your potential. So I'm seeing that in there. I immediately, looking at these, went to Eastern's new core values, because we've been updating the liberal arts core values at Eastern, and I'm living and breathing it at the moment. And they align actually very well with Eastern. Eastern's are communication, creativity, critical thinking, ethical reasoning, which I see in the care piece also. But the last one is missing. And so I'm wondering what people think about that. It's quantitative literacy, understanding numbers and data. So that's the one that I'm not seeing here, that I'm wondering if that's something that we would want to see in this at the K-8 level.
I assumed that was under number 1, under the variety of mediums to clearly convey information, and that it would come out in the rubric that there would be both literacy and numeracy. As you know, it's not exclusively, for example, written communication. It's not only one medium. Anyone else want to respond to that before we move to Brianna?
I mean, I'll jump in. You are correct, Michelle. That's where I would see it too. I know our discussion around that particular indicator. At first, it was actually in the competency line, which is the bolded line, and we moved it below because we really felt that was more of an indication of communication. But I do recall our conversation being around that, like knowing who your audience is, what is the information you need to get across, what's the best means to get it across, which is speaking to what you're talking about. Do you use data in numerical sets? Do you use narrative? Do you use technology? But all of that is built into that. So yes.
All right. Thank you. Brianna?
Can I just say something before we get to Brianna? Sorry, Brianna.
Go ahead.
The word creativity has come up, and we toss that word around a lot. And every time we had a conversation about it, it always came back to critically think. Because could you be creative without the thinking portion? And so this is, I think, where we saw that. And this is where I think you do see some places like Eastern that have creativity and think critically separated. But we did go round and round, and I would fully expect to see, as we built out rubrics, that creativity falls into number 3. Aaron, you agree with that?
Yeah. I think we saw it somewhere else too, but we did talk about where it fell mainly in number 3. Yep.
Yeah.
I do see them as being different, but whatever. I'm just thinking you could do critically and creatively think to build blah blah blah, but it's fine.
I don't know. Then it becomes 5 C's, Laura.
No, it should be in that one. In number 3, critically and creatively think. But if it's in the indicators, that's what matters. So.
Okay, Brianna?
Erin, did you say the rubrics were going to start with grade 2 and be the even numbered grades?
So the rubrics will be, and that's being guided by, not me, that's actually being guided by the Yep. And the Great Schools Partnership. So she's actually putting together drafts. I am working with her. We do meet kind of in between the main meetings to make sure, we kind of talk about the language in there and make sure that it's in there. But so I'm really kind of being guided by her. But I know that we did talk about checkpoints. Phil, I don't know, you might answer that better in terms of if we landed on what grades we were going to use as those checkpoints.
Brianna, we're not there yet. So we talked about checkpoints, but we talked about, and this again, you go out and you look what other people have done. Some people do every single grade, but then you don't see significant differences. And then some people have done an elementary model. Hey, I'm going to do a pre-K 3. And then I'm going to do an intermediate model, or, a 4-6. And then I'm going to do a middle school model 7-8. We haven't determined that yet. That's kind of the next step for the committee. And I think that's going to flush out as we move forward with rubrics.
Okay. I was just wondering if it might make sense to do a baseline in K, for example, and some of the students' growth might lead you to a different tier for some of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually did talk about a kindergarten only section. So again, that's raw. It's not, I haven't even seen the draft yet. So.
Okay, no worries. Just a thought. Thanks.
Okay. Herb, did I see your hand?
Yeah. This in this document, Phil, you could put on all of the skills and attributes. There are other attributes that could be in here that I don't see. Under item number 2, where we have demonstrating empathy and respect, and this one here, we have emotional intelligence, which is, I guess, self-awareness and motivation, empathy, and that kind of thing. It would seem to me that there are other topics that could have been put in the document, like problem solver or solution, lifelong learner, for example. In other words, there are many attributes that are not in here that, so I don't think it's a complete document. Also under B, develop and apply an understanding of diverse cultures. And like the first one, which gets in social and emotional attributes, this one gets into other things that they would be getting it in the school. But as far as being part of the portrait of a graduate, I don't really see the connection. Diverse cultures could be almost anything: race, age, nationality, religion, sexual orientation. There are a lot of things that are hidden in here. And it seems to me that a lot of attributes and skills of a graduate were left out. And I think some of them are more important than item 2A and B.
Doubt. The problem solver, lifelong learner.
Herb, can you repeat the two that you thought were left out? Was it problem solver and lifelong learner?
Well, that was
Or
just
were those just examples?
Yeah, just examples. Problem solvers, a lifelong learner. Things of that kind are not in here.
Actually, I would agree with Herb about the lifelong learner. Being a lifelong learner is critical. No matter what profession you go into, because things change so much, or even just, and I know things are a lot easier in certain respects now than when I was growing up. You know, if I open my refrigerator and I know what my meat is, and I kind of have an idea of what I want my side to be, I can Google it and come up with a great recipe. But the ability to improve yourself by learning something that maybe you just want to learn it for fun, you know, it doesn't have to be your profession, but just that helps keep your mind young.
Laura?
I completely agree. Lifelong learning is incredibly important. I do see it here under critically think to build understanding. To me, that is what you do as a lifelong learner. You're constantly asking questions, collecting information, applying knowledge across disciplines, you know, and you're thinking about all this information to make meaning and to understand the world. So that and problem solving to me is number 3, because it's also generate innovative solutions, and that's problem solving. So I think, you know, maybe it needs to be phrased a little bit differently, but I do think that those are encompassed by number 3. Number 2, I think, is incredibly important for students to be able to demonstrate empathy and to care about each other and to care about all people. And that's where the diversity piece comes in. It's understanding and caring about everyone in your community. And so, you know, it's I could say a soft skill, I guess, but I think that, you know, demonstrating empathy and respect, that's what our democracy is built on. And I think that that one is critical, is truly important.
They are important, but so is the other attributes that I have mentioned.
And I believe that they're there, Herb, though, in number 3.
There are a lot of attributes you can put into a document of this kind, and I mean these may be important to you, but there are some that I've just mentioned, and there are a lot of others that are not in here that could be considered as well.
So Herb, I'm not sure if you're saying that the two that you mentioned should be included, or if you're saying that you want time to
Those are
to
just a couple of
contribute
examples.
additional ones that you haven't thought of yet. Because we're not voting on this tonight. We're going to have time to vote.
Yeah. If I did some research, I could probably come up with a lot more.
Right, you could do that. Are you going to do that? Or is that your intention? I'm just trying to understand in terms of process. I'm not sure exactly what you're
I
saying.
don't know. This is a draft. We're not going to take action.
You have to
on
think
this
about it. What you're saying is you have to think about it and you'll see.
All we're doing is throwing ideas into his lap, and he can digest them and use them as he will.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and
Additional
I will
questions?
just, sorry,
ahead,
can I
Phil.
just say, there has been a lot of that digestion. I will say that this started pre-pandemic. And there are a lot of things we could definitely add to this. And one of the things that we got for feedback from other districts that was really important was putting too many in. And it's actually, it's one thing that Region 19 said. They thought they had put too many things in. And if they could do it again, they'd make some of these shorter. And honestly, how we wrote the competency lines, we kind of built things together, just like you were using the word creative with critically think, and you've got responsible community member with care and empathy. That was our solution to it. Think about elementary students really taking this over too, and their little stickers are going to say critically think, care. It's not going to have this whole line on it. It's not going to have the indicators on it. But there's a lot of other attributes that we did look at. And as we had a lot of conversation to whittle down with this, with Great Schools Partnership to get to here. So just wanted to share that point.
And as you indicated at the outset, this is aligned with the E.O. Smith portrait of a graduate as well.
Yes, correct.
But that doesn't mean I agree with all of them.
Fair enough. Anne?
I had two thoughts. Number one, in number 3, I believe is where the arts would be involved. That's the creativity and forming products and things like that. Do we want to spell out arts in there somewhere too, or no? Just a thought. And then going back to that lifelong learner, I look at A, ask questions, collect information, and apply knowledge across disciplines. Doesn't that describe lifelong learning? It does to me. So just a couple of thoughts.
Okay, other thoughts before we move on? Okay, so let's move on to the policy review. Are you going to be able to share your screen, Phil, and put it up that way? Okay, then I won't try and dig out the attachments. Yep, Phil, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I did share this already with you, and I did go to the board, sent the letter to the Board of Finance chair. It sounds like they have fully accepted that the way the language is written in the policy doesn't match statute. This now matches the statute, and basically the change is it allows you to spend funds from this account without having to have additional approvals. And again, the point is, if you have money in the end of your year budget and you want to put it into this non-lapsing fund, the Unexpected Education Fund account, you have to request those funds be put in by the Board of Finance. They can accept or deny that. That is their role in this. Once they accept it, the funds have already been accepted for education purposes. So now once it's in a non-lapsing account, If you want to spend those funds, the board would vote to spend those funds. I cannot do it. It's not like out of the budget where I would approve it. Anything on a non-lapsing fund would come through a board vote. And that's basically following statute now. And so all of this cross out here basically goes to this here is the change that it's basically authorized by the Board of Education. It has to be used for educational purposes. It may include non-recurring or unanticipated expenditures, such as capital or unanticipated student placement and associated costs. But you could decide to do $10,000 worth of different furniture. You could decide to do $4,000 worth of books. That is entirely up to you once it's in that account. So that is the significant change here to this policy. And there were several members of the Board of Finance that spoke about it. So they fully understood the change. And this 2%, sorry, is statute. That's what they changed it to.
Okay, questions on this particular policy number 3171? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
I move that we approve policy 3171, unexpended education funds account.
And a second?
I'll second. Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Additional questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the policy 3171 for unexpended education funds signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to the next one on bullying.
Yep, so this next policy, the majority of this contains the legal language that you need to be compliant with the statute. But obviously, more importantly, it provides the guidance for the administrators if there's a bullying case arises. So again, anything in red or crossed out is really legal. That this went through the attorney already. You've seen it. There's the addition of just adding the word definitions. It defines a school employee. This was new legislation that came out. You had to have a piece about teen dating violence. That's not what's missing in quotation right there. That's a requirement. And then they changed it to the state school climate plan. So everything that's in here has been through the attorney and is very much legal language.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the policy 5131.911 bullying.
Thank you, Herb. And a second? Anne?
A second, Ann.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving policy 5131.911 on bullying signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to policy 4250.
Yeah, so this was actually, and this shows a double update. So this was approved in June of 2019. We left those on, the changes on there just so you can see that. The things that are in yellow were what's new. Just so you can see, there was a lot of legal language here again that was added for compliance, but the things that were in yellow were new. The other thing that was, I think, big, this policy, for whatever reason, it was in the student section. And this is about personnel and their responsibility to report child abuse and neglect. They don't have a choice in this. It is a personnel matter, not a student matter. So this policy number would change from 5141.4 to policy 4250. And again, the minor changes in here are that are in yellow are, things that the policy committee went through.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Herb?
I'll make a motion that we approve policy 4250, reporting child abuse and neglect.
Thank you. Is there a second? Anne? Any additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the motion to support, I'm sorry, all those in favor of the motion to approve policy 4250 on reporting child abuse and neglect signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you, Policy Committee, for all your work to get through those.
Okay, now to be a little more efficient, I'm going to move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 8th, 2022, the policy committee meetings of March 3rd, March 28th, and April 4th, 2022, and the curriculum committee minutes of March 30th, 22.
Point of information,
Sure.
are we approving them or receiving them?
I would
think-
say, I think that receiving them is more
Receiving.
appropriate, as I had said earlier. I take the friendly amendment to receive the minutes as opposed to approve them. Thank you. There's not yet a second, so we might not move ahead.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, with that amendment, Herb seconds it. Questions, comments on any of those minutes? Laura?
I just have one minor thing in that my last name has a G, not a Q. So throughout the minutes from the last meeting, it's got a Q there.
Okay, that's a simple find and replace. We can fix that. Thank you for calling that to our attention, however. Donna, I see your hand up.
Yeah, could you just explain to me the difference between receiving and, was it accepting? Were those the two words?
Well, we're accepting the minutes as they are presented from the committees. We're not approving them as perfectly accurate because many of us were not in attendance of those committees.
Okay, thank you very much.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving all 5 of the minutes from items under new business D through H signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, don't we have to say, you just said approve. I thought we were accepting.
Sorry. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. It's late for me already. To accept the minutes as stated, correct? The motion as stated. All those in favor of accepting the minutes under new business items D through H signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. That was trying to be efficient and I made it less efficient, so I apologize. Moving on to item I, the Willington Public Schools calendar update.
So the school calendar here has been updated to reflect our 4 snow days. The last day of school currently is June 21st with our 4 snow days. It is a half day. That makes 182 student days, which is what you have in your policy. You have a couple options here, and you've done this in the past, and you can make some determination if this is where you want to land. You could consider completing the state minimum of 180 days and end school for students on Friday, June 17th. So you've had 4 snow days. This makes 182. You would eliminate 181 and 182, so no school on 20 and 21, and make the last day of school on the 17th. And that would make the cleanup day for staff contractual day is the 20th. That is an option that's entirely up to you. The other option you have, and you could do this in coordination with that if you wanted. And I'm going to say this word, I don't even want to say it, but if you have any more snow, if we have another snow day by chance, a weather day, and you have to go out to the 22nd, I would say you don't make that change. It's just that those 2 days have turned the corner. So if you do have another snow day, weather day, and we go out to the 22nd, maybe the 23rd, I hope not, that you would leave it as is. So it's up to you if you want to make that change. But if you are going to create a motion that goes to 180, I would suggest that you make it that you only go to 180 if you do not have any additional snow days.
Thank you. Thoughts, questions?
I've got some concerns. The kids are losing so much time because of the staff development days. It's kind of a two-edged sword. One is by that time in June, they probably don't care what anybody is saying in front of them. But the other thing is that's more time that parents are going to have to find childcare or make other arrangements. And they're already losing so much time with the teacher development. I want to do what's in the best interest of the students. And I'm not sure if there's a clear answer on this.
I suspect, Donna, there's also probably an issue with attendance when we come back for just a Monday or a Tuesday, Monday and a half day. Has that happened in previous years or in other districts that those of you who work in schools, has that happened before? Brianna, you're shaking your head. Yeah. Mm. Go ahead, Laura.
So I completely understand what Donna is saying. And definitely coming back for 1.5 days is an attendance issue. But the other issue is there's always those last 2 days, the last day and a half that, your students are not learning. I mean, there has to be a last day, right? And we all know that last day students are not really learning very much. So I guess my concern is, I understand everyone's exhausted and wants to finish, but pushing it back 2 days is really losing the 16th and the 17th as days that students might be learning something. And they might not come the 20th and the 21st, but they're not going to learn anything on the 20th and the 21st, but you have to have a last day. I mean, that just is the way it is.
Brianna?
Lots of things, but I just wanted to say that for students, if they were to end on the 17th, they have the weekend with their families, and then they're accustomed to their schedules and lifestyles changing on a Monday. So if they're starting their new summer program, whether it be in a daycare, a camp with a babysitter, that starting on Monday, I think is better rather than attending school 2021. And then in the middle of the week, all of a sudden they're doing something new and strange and they just left their friends. So I would say finish out school, give them the weekend with their families, and then they're used to transitioning to something else. That would be that Monday, the 20th, a good time to start their new summer routine, whatever that's going to be.
Good point.
Other thoughts?
I think I really appreciate what everybody said, but on this one, I'm going to agree with Laura that there is always going to be a last day. And if a family chooses not to send their kid for the last day or day and a half, that's going to be their choice. But I agree that if we stop the 17th, now we're losing the 21st and the 20th and the 17th as far as stuff going on.
Anne?
Could we vote on this next month when we know whether we're going to have another weather event or not?
You would hope that we would know by now. It is April, right? I know. But one nice day does not make a season for sure. I think there's nothing that says we couldn't cut those last 2 days next month. It gives people less notice in terms of making plans for when their summer programs start or childcare. So more notice is better generally.
Technically right now, because of the snow days, the way you approve the calendar, the last day is the 21st. So this is the updated calendar. It's correct. What you would be voting on would be to be changing that. So you'd just be doing last day. So if you change that, the other thing that, is hard, and we've done this in the past, is that, if it's 95 degrees the week of the 13th, We don't have AC in all of our classrooms. We've also done early dismissals for heat. It's never easy for parents. But when it's 90 degrees in the classroom, that's not easy for a student either.
Yeah.
So different considerations. I hear both sides.
Point.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, and it's hot.
Yeah.
Been in there some days.
It's hard to remember what hot is when it hasn't been hot yet, right? But so this is the way the calendar stands right now. So we're only going to make a change if someone makes a motion to that effect. And I'm not seeing a lot of people jumping up and down about making a motion to that effect. Am I correct? I'm not just missing somebody on the screen. Okay, so seeing no motion, I think we should move on to the next item on the calendar.
Phil, can you put it on as old business for next month? And we could revisit it, or? Even if it's on, we can put it on the agenda, Anne. It's old business, but it's almost non-business at this point because there's no motion on the table. It's not like we made a motion and tabled it for more information. Well, I may want to make a motion, in May. I'm listening to Phil's point about if we do have one more weather day, then we cannot do it.
Okay. So I think we can put it on the old business and we can have the same conversation or not next month. See if anybody's interested in making a motion after the weather's a little warmer. Okay. Moving ahead, next is the healthy food certification renewal.
So the healthy food certification, this is a requirement of the National School Lunch Program. This is what provides student access to free or reduced priced options. So you have to do this. It's interesting that you have to do it, but to participate in the national, you already participate in the National School Lunch Program, and it is what provides those free and reduced prices. So you have to do it. I suggest that you complete the exact motion that's on the screen there. And it's actually this one first, sorry. Let me scroll back up. This is the first one that you need to do, which is the motion language for healthy food options. This is what's required. And then once you do that, complete the combined motion at the bottom. That's the language for combined food and beverage exemptions. But then that simply just allows you to sell food and beverages after school hours at events, as long as it's not through a vending machine, which we don't have anyways. So if there's a dance, they can sell things that don't meet this, requirement, things like that.
Okay,
What's in this motion? I can't read it. It's
okay. So how about I move, and then if there's a second, and then we can discuss it after you have all the language, Herb. Is that good? Do you want me to read it out loud? Okay.
This is the gist of it.
Yep.
You actually have to read this exactly as it's written. Sorry.
Okay.
I move that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools in Wellington and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. Is there a
Can I make
second?
a friendly amendment? I thought she had to read that first sentence.
The pursuant.
I thought it had to say, Michelle, can I amend it to say pursuant to CGS section 10-215F, the Board of Education or governing authority certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempt from, and then whatever Michelle said.
Sure, I'll accept that friendly motion.
So that it's exactly as that paragraph.
Yep. Does that serve as a second, Donna?
Yes, and I will second it.
Okay. Other questions?
This is the same thing we voted on last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay.
Now, this is the second part. My suggestion is if you want both food and beverage exemptions to be able to sell after school hours, then you do this combined motion right here. And yes, you need to read it exactly as it is.
Okay, I move that the Board of Education or governing authority will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales.
I'll second.
Thank you. Additional questions, thoughts? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the table about exemptions, signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Abstentions? Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving right along those. Next is item K, curriculum materials for the website.
So the curriculum committee reviewed various district websites to determine what other districts were posting regarding curriculum.
Before you move ahead, can you stop sharing your screen, Phil?
I'm gonna share my screen right here next.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Is that okay?
Go ahead.
It'll be quick. So I showed the committee a variety of these district websites, and there is a very, very small number of districts. I think we actually found one that is posting their entire curriculum online. And so our curriculum is always available for review through my office. There's a process for that. And I think the committee can speak up here. I think the committee is recommending creating grade level curriculum overview guides specifically meant for parents, families, and that they show trimester expectations instead of posting every detail that, like Laura said before, if you're not a teacher, is not going to mean much to you. And what I want to do before you get into that discussion is just to show you what they were speaking about. I did share some of these with them. Some of these are going to be new to them. So I have guides from Mansfield, Trumbull, Westport, and then I'm going to show you the trimester guides expectations we have posted from Center School. So to give you a sense of what they're recommending, we can always have links to Common Core standards. It's very easy to do. But this is Mansfield's. I think that's their new school, by the way. And they have put in the front of their document, all of this is their core beliefs tied to their portrait of a graduate. And here's their, just like we were just talking about, there's the attribute along with the indicators. And then what they did is they spelled out every grade level. Sorry, I'm going to get to it. I know I'm making you dizzy. They did the guide by grade level. So they have English language arts, kind of mission statements for each of these, for science, for social studies. And then once they were done with that, they got into the specifics. So there's PE. By the end of grade 4, students will use their learning too. And it says what they were going to do. The thing the committee discussed when they looked at this, though, was it doesn't tell a family, hey, what am I working on this trimester? So that's something they would want, this kind of look, but break it down by trimester. And if you look at the learning outcomes, this is what it looks like. So here's kindergarten. And this is the layout I think that they're looking for, that they felt would support families as long as it was done by trimester and they could see the standards. So there's the family as partners on the side, but by the end of kindergarten, students will use their learning too. It says what they're going to do. It's not real specific. It's not as obviously clear as the curriculum, but it gives you the sense of what they're doing. Again, the committee really wants this to be broken out further, so it shows by trimester. Here's what my child is reading, doing in reading, but by trimester 1 in kindergarten, by trimester 2, and all the way through. And that's basically what it does for each of the grade levels. And they have some families as partners. Sorry, I have a bug flying around my office here. Families as partners. It's got the pieces that they want, families to see what the students are working on. So again, it just gives you a quick sense. I'm flying through this. They do it for all the grades. They're all the same. So you've got this type of layout. Then you've got a layout like this. This is Trumbull's. And their guide is basically a front and back. Okay. And they did the same thing. They just didn't do it by trimester. So what is second grade music going to look like? And this is specifically for second grade. It's got the information here. Core beliefs are in there. And then it breaks down what mathematics is going to look like. What am I going to learn in second grade in mathematics? It's got the ideas here. I think from the committee's perspective, they didn't see the parent connection here. And I think that's important for us. So there's got to be something for parent practice on the side if they want to do some work with their student at home, and it doesn't have the trimester breakdown. Okay. Then you go to a Westport, same concept, curriculum at a glance. It's not the whole thing. This is a little more, it's a little more wordy. And then it breaks down to what they're going to be working on. And then it has the breakdown by unit name and what the specific learning is. This specific learning is honestly directly tied to the same standards you saw in the others. So you're learning to read and write numbers to 10 million. And it's directly tied to standards. So students will know how to. And I think that's okay, but it doesn't give parents enough information for how they can support, and then by trimester. Now, this is what is on the Center School website. This is the end of trimester 1, language arts performance expectations. And these are the main themes, the read literature using key IDs and details. And this is directly tied to the report card. These are the headings. The bold is the heading in the report card. And so it shows you that first, just what they're doing on. And it says, taught trimester 3. So there's nothing there. Again, because this is only trimester 1. So for foundational reading skills, this is exactly what they would be doing for applying phonics and word recognition in the first trimester. So it gives you that example. And it does the same thing for each of those. And speaking, listening languages is how the standards are broken apart for Common Core. But it tells you exactly what they're working on, and that's how their grades are going to come in that trimester. Math has the same look. So again, the main headings, and then what the subheadings are, represent, solves word problems involving addition and subtraction, and what that looks like. So you can see specifically what they're working on. And they started adding in, a little bit more detail. So this is directly tied to the report card. I will tell you the report card still needs to be updated. These would need to be updated. But I think a combination of this here, what you see here, with what you see in the parent guide from Mansfield would give parents the information that they would be looking for. And I think it was Laura that said, if the parent wants more detail, they're typically not going to go to the website. They're going to contact their child's teacher, and they're going to ask for those additional things. What are the resources that they'll be using? So this is also something that you can easily update, loading every document from the curriculum onto the website. The one place that we did see it, I think it was New London, it's escaping me, actually pays for a very expensive subscription to a company called Atlas, and that's where all their curriculum is. So I thought it was important to share this first before you kind of got into your conversation about what should be posted, what's available, where should it be, and what does it look like. So Anybody from the curriculum committee, feel free to chime in.
Anne?
And Phil, you had said that you would have a printed version of the curriculum in your office if a parent or any other community member wanted to go in and look at it. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So that it would still be available. It's just that there wouldn't be that much detail on the website.
Donna, I see your hand is up. You're on mute though.
So what I would like to see, I really liked how Mansfield's was set up. But I think that when I'm looking at the curriculum and there's these mentor texts / resources, I think that those should be on the website with the appropriate spot. So if somebody wants to know, I mean, I've been taking a lot of time to either get books from the library or do internet searches on various of these resources so that I can read them for myself at my convenience in my house when I'm available. And the reality of parents or grandparents or community members having to go into your office to look at this isn't necessary. I mean, if you want to put a copy at the library, that's fine, so that people that don't want to spend time online can do that. But I really think it's important, excuse me, that that these be posted so people can look and read for themselves and make their own decisions.
Tracy?
We appreciate what you're saying, Donna, and we discussed this during our meeting that the curriculum is a living document and it changes as teachers implement it and determine new things. So it's always being updated. And in addition to that, the resources are not set in stone. So as new resources become available, or a teacher might say, for this particular group of students, this isn't going to work for whatever reason, maybe ability, or we need to use a different type of resource. If they've discussed that and it fits with our policies and our curriculum, with what's being taught in the curriculum, it could be changing. So it's not like, those are the sources that we are suggesting most likely will be used, but they could be changing as new books are being written and then published or fit the needs of the students. So by publishing the curriculum on the website and taking it as this is the document that's going to live, we're making it rigid and not as flexible as it can be by in I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess I mean, websites have things posted all the time. And so it can be as of, and I'm making this up, once a quarter, someone goes in and glances and says, yeah, none of the teachers are using this, or this has been replaced by, so that it's updated and current. I mean, I'm not expecting that this would be updated on a daily basis, and that I'm not saying that it would be the only information that's allowed that would impair a teacher who comes across a really amazing resource from using it. But when you look at what's there, enough thought should be being put into it now that there's some level of stability to it. And then it can just be updated as time goes on, whether it's for somebody who's considering becoming a teacher in our district, somebody who's considering moving into our district, parents who want to be informed and they're trying to make a decision. They hear something and they want to know, is that really on the list? Well, then they'll know, and they can make their own decisions. It's not going to prevent a teacher from substituting something, and it's not going to prevent it from being updated. especially when we're in this time of transition, trying to figure out what's really in this.
Additional questions, thoughts? Laura?
Yeah, I'm thinking having, I mean, it's a long list of books because children choose different books, right? So when you're looking at all the resources, but I'm thinking the mentor texts and the main teaching ones, I agree. I think that would be good to have on the website. I don't think, you know, if you kept it to like a core group of books, I think that could be on the website with the understanding that, you know, students, when they choose their own books, you know, to do independent reading and different things, you know, it's more than just those books. So I think you could have a short list of resources that teachers pretty much use. But you know, I think the thing we wanted to get away from was going into the nitty gritty of the curriculum that goes through all the strategies that the teacher does, you know, with a structured read. And, you know, it's a huge document. And what parents really want to know is, what are my kids going to learn? And there's certainly concerns, you know, what books are they going to read, or what are the resources that they're using, and what kinds of things can I do with my kids to help them learn that. I love that one section with the family. I don't remember, it was titled Family Connections or something. And I also like that you know, the ones that we just looked at, I agree, as Phil was saying, they're too broad. It's like, you know, at the end of the year, they'll learn this, but by trimester, it gives you a little handle on what they're learning throughout the year. As far as more specificity, really, parents should be talking to the teacher, and that's a parent-teacher partnership. I know when I taught fourth grade, I published my Monday memo every week. And even in seventh grade, you know, I gave like an end of the week or every 2 weeks sort of newsletter that went home about what we were learning. When they were paper, don't know that they actually got home. With the digital backpack, you know, when it became electronic, and actually at one point I had my own website, right? So that was up there. So parents could actually check what was going on, what the homework was, et cetera. But that specificity needs to be at the teacher level, not at the curriculum level. So.
Brianna, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I totally agree about the families as partners section. That was really awesome. I love seeing that connection there. Also, even as an educator, I would much rather go to my child's homeroom teacher or other teacher's webpage and look there for these specific things. Looking at curriculum is very dense, and as I think Erin has said before, it's written for the teachers, so it doesn't always make sense. It's difficult to read sometimes, and unless you know those Common Core state standards or what sorts of goals you're working for, it may not make sense at all. So when I go to meet and greet and meet my children's teachers, I am looking around their classroom and looking at the books they have, and I'm talking to them about what sort of exciting things they'll be doing. When we have, is it curriculum night, right? They do very nice presentations about all the things the children will be learning, including pieces of literature and other STEAM or other activities that they'll be participating in, which is wonderful. Anytime we're doing conferences or any sort of other event at the school, you have opportunities to ask these questions as well. So for me, as a parent, that's way more valuable than looking at all of that cumbersome curriculum. So maybe to look at the teachers' pages themselves, I'm sure they're keeping their web pages updated, and having newsletters or even daily notes are very helpful too, just to keep parents in the loop, like Laura was saying. Because could we say that the curriculum is available upon request? It's not about trying to hide what's on there, right? It's just such a long thing. I wouldn't want to impose that on people. I'd rather make it easier and answer questions like, what is my kid reading?
And certainly we could post the hours and, you know, Brenda's phone number to be able to come in and, you know, sit at the table in there and look at it, you know, in the superintendent's office, if people wanted additional detail beyond what their teachers providing. Herb?
Yeah, I think everyone's had good ideas in relation to the references and books that the students would be using in their classroom. To me, the curriculum is important. I think that it should be available to the parents, but also I think the reading material that the students have is essential as well. And it seems to me that in the website, it will be a simple matter to just list the books that the students in, say, the K-8 are reading each semester or for the year for that matter, and have it on the website with just a listing of the books that are available. That way parents can look at that list and decide whether they want to look at any one of the books on that list that they that's on the website.
Herb, I have a clarifying question. You had said the list of books that are available. Do you mean the list of books that all of the students will all be reading? Like if everybody's reading one text, those, or do you mean
No,
every book in the teacher's library that the students could read?
In the curriculum, there are a number of books that are listed for each one of the lessons in there or for each project. Just the essential books, and highlight them in the website. I mean, otherwise you're concealing their reading material. And to me, that's essential. Parents should know in this day and age what their youngsters are reading
Tracy and then Phil.
in school.
Tracy?
Well, Phil can go first if he wants to. Maybe.
I was just going to say, this is something I think that I could sit down with Aaron and Kristen just to find out. I think we're really talking about the teachers, the Readers and Writers Workshop. So Teachers College we have purchased their program for language arts, and Teachers College has recommended books. So I think that I would go back to Aaron and Kristen. I don't want to put them on the spot here. But I think we probably could find a way to see if we could generate a list of what they have in the Teachers College program. I mean, I think we could do that. It's the additional piece that I think that the little caveat is I would not expect every time someone pulls a new resource to post it online. Every teacher is required to update their information. It might be a newsletter, it might be their website, it could be Seesaw, it could be Google Classroom. I don't think we're going to update that book list on a regular basis, but I think there's potential that we could pull together book lists for each of the grade levels. So at least you could see what's in the Teachers College program because they've identified it. And so just because it's on a list though, doesn't mean that every resource is going to be used. Sometimes it's, hey, look at the cover of this book. What do you see? Because it's a great cover for a conversation. They're not reading that book. It's just part of the conversation to, talk about how to choose a book or how they make a determination of what the author is trying to send for a message by what's in the illustration. So I would prefer to ask them that question afterwards and see if it's something we could do. But I don't think, just from what I know, that may not be an unreasonable request. It's something that we could pull together and put out there, but I would ask them that. Thanks, Tracy.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Tracy?
No, Phil did a fine job.
I think it would be really important that there be a caveat that this is not the limit, that children will read other books from the library that they get to choose, that this is not all inclusive, that list. And I wouldn't want any parent to think that there's no other book the child's going to read all year just because it wasn't on the list.
Right.
Okay, so do you want to go and should we move this to old business to talk about next month? We're not ready to put things up anyway, and you could get the questions answered about the book lists, Phil?
Yeah, and I think with the curriculum committee too, they can kind of put this on their business. If we've gotten some feedback, I think, tonight. I think that you've seen some models, and we could start to look at this. Is going to take a while to develop, but we can start to try and plug in at least what the framework looks like, and then plug in the information. Because if you can see the framework, where's the standards, where's the parent support, where's the book list, what's the trimester expectation, that would help Erin. I think, Erin, you can probably nod here. I think as she's writing curriculum, she can just plug things in right there. And you know, honestly, it would be easy to do that. And then that's not the easy part. Do that. And then it would be easier then to identify the report card piece and the changes that we need to make to the report card. So I think curriculum committee, I think we can do some of that work and then bring it back to the board. A curriculum committee meets, I think, in May again sometime. So it might not be ready for the next board meeting, but we can start the work with that, and I can meet with and I'm saying Erin and Kristen, but trust me, there's other people involved in this process too.
Sure. Okay, seeing no more raised hands, let's move on to old business. Wellington Public Schools COVID protocols update.
Yeah, so listen, we've been doing well. You know, I think the removal of masks was a little nerve-wracking for folks. We've had 4 cases in a month, and you know, I'm going to recommend that you adjust your protocols again, just because where we're at. And we have a mask requirement right now in music classes for singing. I have obviously we've monitored to see where our cases look like. We've been in good shape. I will tell you that I had Brenda call around to several districts around us. No one's requiring masks in music class. They're using the things for band still, but that's not a student mask. So my suggestion would be that you make this optional, just like any other area. And it's this. So basically what I would do in your protocols here that you had approved, this line would just be adjusted. Students participating in singing activities must wear a mask unless they can maintain 6 feet between themselves. I think you just remove that and you leave the rest of it as it is. Obviously, you have a statement on the bottom of page 5 here that if something goes south and we need to make a change, that we're going to work with you know, DPH and Eastern Highlands, and that could be reinstated. But my suggestion at this time would be for the board to allow me to what I'm going to say, produce again, publish again, with the adjustment of taking out, sorry for making you dizzy, taking out this one line in yellow.
I make a motion that the line stating students participating in singing activities must wear a mask unless they can maintain a 6 feet between themselves be deleted.
Thank you, Donna. Is there a second? You have to come off mute. It can't be just visual. Sorry, guys. Okay, Brianna was faster off mute. Okay, so thank you, Brianna, for that second. Questions or comments? Laura?
No, I'm good.
Oh, sorry. You're the yellow square moved around you.
Oh,
thought
I unmuted. That was all. Just unmuted.
Okay.
Just getting ready.
Okay.
Shall we remind families that they do still have the right to choose to wear them?
We would put out a notification, Brianna, absolutely, that they have the option to do that, and that this would no longer be a requirement. It's optional.
Okay.
You know what? Can I just ask you to do, you're buying me time. It's 9:20. That this would go into effect on today's Tuesday, on Thursday. So that way I could send a notification tomorrow and they're not getting a notification tonight. So into effect, sorry, Donna.
That's okay. I will accept a friendly amendment to put this in place going in effect.
April 14th.
Thursday, is that the 14th?
Correct.
Yeah.
April 14th.
Okay.
Or midnight on the 13th. Midnight on the 13th.
That is the specific language when the school day started in that other language earlier. That was
Right,
that was
it
a good
was.
catch. Okay, seeing no more comments or questions, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the eliminating the requirement for masks while singing effective Thursday, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you. One last one. Old business, English Language Arts Curriculum Set 2.
Yep, so you approved set number 1 last meeting. We reviewed the second set last meeting, and obviously this is up for approval tonight. I will confirm that ELE set 3 has gone out. And one thing I think is helpful is that without, again, knowing how dense these documents are, I think Aaron and Kristen are willing to make themselves available for questions. But if you ask them to say, turn to page 482, they're not going to be able to respond right away. It's not the way that this is intended. So if you have any questions for set number 3, which will be on your May board meeting, please email me and I will get responses for you for any questions you have. And just in case there's a chance where it takes a longer conversation, not an email, I know Erin has offered her assistance, and I will say, as long as it's regulated, because she has a very, very strict schedule for her timeline, and so does Kristen. So that's my introduction to this.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Laura?
I'll make a motion to accept the set 2 of the English Language Arts curriculum, or to approve it. I may not have the right word.
I think at this point we're approving it.
Okay, approve it, yes.
Is there a second?
I second it. I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
Anne. Donna?
I have questions.
Yep.
And I just want to preface this with, I probably spent about 2.5 hours on the phone with Erin since our last meeting, where we went through a lot of my questions, and I appreciate her openness and her willingness to answer and her willingness to go back and reconsider some of the items that were in the last set. But today I'm just going to focus on grade 8 reading curriculum. And it starts with, this unit is about cultural relevance and getting teens to fall in love with books that are deeply meaningful to the lives they're living right now. And it goes on, good stuff. Then we get to the part where I have a question. Ways to empower our students to be democratic readers, thinkers, and young activists. I'd like to understand, because I did try to look up what a democratic reader is, and I'd like a definition of that. And I would much prefer that they're being young citizens versus activists. So what's a democratic reader?
I'm assuming, Donna, that that's a Democratic with a small d and not a large d.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Aaron, I just unmuted you, but you got to click it.
Sorry, I was just trying to pull it up. So I was on a different screen.
Grade 8 reading curriculum, unit 1, and it's the very first page at that top block where it says critical literacy.
Yep. And then you read, and you're reading, trying to
It's
read.
the very last sentence, or the last line.
Yeah, become literary. In that last, so in the become literary activists, learning to speak serious. So you want, your suggestion is to change the word activists to
Well, I don't know why
Read
you, what is a literary activist? And what is a democratic reader?
Yep. So the literary, so, and again, this is TC language. My interpretation after writing this unit and translating it and knowing what this unit is typically about, is the literary, and Kristen, feel free to chime in, but literary activists would be where they're using literacy to learn about topics. And in this specific one, as you read through it, they really look at, towards the end of the author bias. So they look at connotative language, and really, again, building those critical thinking skills so that they can in turn use their knowledge to make the world a better place. That's what they mean by activism. So using literacy, it's late, we're all getting tongue tied.
Literature.
Yes. But using the literature to learn about a topic, build their understanding, and then use it to make the world a better place. Literary activist.
So I would respectfully request that instead of there being an activist, that they're a citizen. A good citizen makes the world a better place.
So I'm just going to put a comment in here for myself.
And I still don't quite understand what a democratic reader is.
And so just I'm still on the literary activist. Are you saying, what was the adjective you said before community member?
Citizen.
Citizen.
A
Before
good citizen. She said a good citizen.
Yeah. Because we want them thinking, we want them questioning, we want them participating.
Okay. So I'm making a note for the language change in there. And because I do want to run it by the teacher as well, because they also weigh in, but I certainly I'm putting that note in there. And then you brought up another one. What line is that in?
It's the very, a few words before that. It says democratic reader. I mean, we want them to be great readers. What's a democratic reader?
So they go, teach students to be democratic readers, singers. Oh, so they do a lot of basically in this unit, they do a lot of collaboration and building, and again, like they're talking around things, they're looking at different aspects. So I'm going as that's what I believe they're talking about, like just being able to talk, build ideas. Again, readers, thinkers, that they're taking part in their own learning community. That's where that activism piece comes in. So I believe that's the preface of democratic in what they're talking about in this particular unit.
So could we if you just eliminated the word democratic, so that our students, we want them to be good readers and good thinkers.
Yeah.
Like why are we making it more confusing than it needs to be?
Again, I'm going to note that I'm totally fine with that change. So, but I'll run it by. I think the point of the unit still gets across with the other words.
Okay. And then, so I was all excited about, we want them to fall in love with books that are deeply meaningful. Then I go to the mentor texts, and this is where I have my problem. Internment, the second one on the list. Horrifying near future United States, 17-year-old and her parents are forced into a Muslim internment camp. Then we go down a little farther. The Hate U Give, where someone gets to see the fatal shooting of a dear friend at the hands of a police officer. All sorts of movies and videos. And then this just, I found this ironic. The Brotherly Love Coke video, where it demonstrates all those bullying things that we just voted on that said aren't okay. And by the way, our kids aren't allowed to have soda at school. So we're going to show them. I mean, that's just kind of a silly one. And then you go down to the Book Boys Unpacked Refugee. So I watched it. They actually did a very nice job. But then I looked into the book Refugee, where three main characters, they're refugees. One's from Nazi Germany, the other one's from 1990s Cuba, and the other is from modern day Syria. I really have trouble reconciling those texts with the fact that we want kids to fall in love with reading books. Right now, with all the post-COVID, current COVID stress, what's going on with real legitimate refugee crisis in Ukraine. And that way, somehow these resources seem so inappropriate. I reached out to our local state troopers because you may not be aware of it, but we have many families in town who have a member of their family who's a state trooper, our proximity to Troop C. And I said to them, you know, I'm looking at curriculum in town. Is there something you would like to see our students learn? I told them I was from Wellington. We're dealing with K-8. Yeah, nice. I'm assuming young man, just by the sound of his voice, said to me, it would really be nice if we weren't always painted in a negative light. And so I feel that these were really bad choices. I'm not saying that this stuff shouldn't be discussed, but I can't reconcile fall in love with books and having, you know, watching your best friend shot in the Hate U Give. And also there was another shooting in the internment where somebody had to leap in front of a bullet for one of the people interned. And unfortunately, there are real internment camps going on right now in China where Muslims are being interned. And so I think it not only does a disservice to what's really happening, and I know that our country has had internment camps in the past. I happen to know a woman who was in the Japanese internment camp. One of the most amazing ladies you'll ever want to meet. But I really think that this is not being handled well. And the artist that was selected, she is one of Mexico's greatest artists, and she did survive polio. But when you look at what a lot of, you know, I'm going by what the website told me, you know, she does a whole lot of self-portraits, but she also deals with some pretty heavy topics like abortion and miscarriage. And I looked up other great artists. You know, you've got Georgia O'Keeffe or Alexander Calder, and Calder has lots of there's some really great books about his art and things like, there's just, I really question why we're using so many videos when we're supposed to be reading. And it just, I have a real problem with this information.
Brianna, I see your hand.
Yeah, hi. Donna, it sounds to me like you are feeling very protective of our youth, and that's a wonderful thing. My question to you would be, if we are not going to include these topics in our public school, what service is that doing for our children? Because they are watching the news, they are listening to the radios, they are watching their parents and their parents' reactions to horrific things happening in our country and in our world. It's in music, it's on their video games that they're playing at the age of 3 and 4. And I totally agree with you that we need to protect them as much as we can, but I believe that part of protecting them is teaching them how to make it through this world and how to best understand what's happening. If they see things like refugee camps and they come to school and we never address it, I don't think that's helping them. It's our job to help them see their way through these things and guide them. And these literature topics that you're referring to seem harsh. They really do. And I can understand that coming from your perspective and your thoughts and what you're sharing. my daughter read The Lions of Little Rock as a 5th grader. And that book is a lot about racial tension and 2 little girls who overcome it. And I read it with my oldest daughter because I wasn't so sure about the topic for her and her age. And it turned out to be a book we had a lot of opportunities to have conversations about, and it helped both of us understand the other better and to relate it to the world around her. And I've experienced that with my younger daughter this year. And maybe if I'd read the back of that book, I might have had serious concerns, but in the trusted hands of our educators and being able to share it with my children, I was able to see the value in it. So I hear what you're saying, and I echo your sentiment as far as caring for our kids, but I do think it's important we address the things that they're experiencing and seeing in an appropriate way, other than ignoring them or downplaying them, because that's not how the world is. And that's sort of would seem confusing to them if we weren't on their side and trying to help them through.
Herb?
I skimmed through the curriculum, and there are lots of parts in it that I agree with, and it's really done in a fine fashion. I know what the author, Erin was doing, and the others that worked on it, and basically there are a lot of things in there that are excellent. And I think one of the things we try to develop in our youngsters is to become vociferous readers. They should be able to read and understand what they're reading. We're dealing with youngsters from K8, and I went through the curriculum, and I didn't intentionally look at all of the reading material, but it just happened that I gravitated in that area. And I found, and I didn't collaborate with Donna on this at all, but in grade 8, for example, the book on betrayal of a Japanese American. I mean, the book is fine for an adult, but I don't know whether it's something that an 8th grader should be reading. There are so many wonderful, enlightening books out there that are written by tremendous authors, and not only in this generation, but past generations. And I didn't see too many of these books in there. I didn't see any poems from Walt Whitman or things like that. In this one, it was mostly prejudice and bias, and the vocabulary terms were atrocious. In grade 2, they're talking about the honeybee, for example, and it's not only just a honeybee, but you get into biodiversity in plants and organism and superorganism in the text material that I read. And also in grade 6, there's a book in there dealing with education activists. I mean, this is something maybe in high school you would get this in the 6th grade. And you want to develop someone who's going to read some fine books and develop a fine mind. But in grade 4, you have a resource book that deals with disasters. Everything seems so biased, so negative, and it doesn't seem to be enlightening in many respects, and providing the youngsters with an open mind, and I understand that they're going out into the world, but the world has a lot of wonderful things happening out there, and not all bad. Also, you have another one that deals with climate change in the 3rd grade. This is a political thing, and climate change is something that some people agree with, some don't, and so forth. But in the 3rd grade, you're going to just bring this in and deal with diverse cultures and the effects of climate change in that grade. And also in grade 1, for example, you get into African-American culture. And also in the science book that I read, looked at, was kind of negative as well. As I said, a lot of the books right up through the 7th grade, there's another one reflecting on one's bias and bias in the Olympics. As I say, everything seemed to be so negative. If you're gonna, you have to talk about bias in the Olympics when you can talk about the Olympics and the champion athletes that were there. I mean, this is, to me, a lot of the books in here, not all of them, but a good many of them scattered throughout are of this nature. And in grade 5, you have another book that deals with major cultural movement, civil rights movement, and so forth. I mean, the civil rights movement was a great movement. Martin Luther King did great things, but you're not approaching it from that point of view. It's all biased, it's negative, it's it just doesn't seem to me that the books are giving the youngsters the type of background that they need. I mean, there are a lot of wonderful books out there, and I'm sure that you have read them, but I don't see any of them sprinkled in our school system right now in this curriculum, especially in grades 6, 7, and 8. I mean, they can read poetry, they can read some of these great books that we have out there, but they're not getting them with the ones that I've seen listed in this curriculum.
Brianna, I see your hand, and then Tracy.
One weakness.
Oh, I'm sorry, Herb, were you finished?
That I found in this curriculum. The rest of it is wonderful. There's a wonderful job. It's a masterful piece of writing, but I think there are things in here that need looking at and further development. And I'm sure everyone will have an answer for that.
Brianna and then Tracy.
No answers here, really. More questions, maybe. So it's sounding to me like what would be helpful here is some of the literature being used for your SEL program. So in your SOAR, in your second steps, and all of those things you're doing to build classroom community and so on, those are your positive, supportive role model texts. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I am unmuted. Was that a question for me, Brianna, or her?
Well, they exist, don't they?
Yes.
People share them, don't they? So like maybe that's part of Herb's very concerned because he's not seeing that. And so I would be concerned too if I didn't see it, right? He's saying there's negativity and so on. So where are those other, where can we list those other things? Will you have like an SEL curriculum itself that will include that literature?
Well, it is, but they're also included in here. So for instance, you talked about the honeybees. So, and I do want to say this, since I have an opportunity in the floor right now, is two really important things. One, I think this is a Kristen Stevens comment, but I'm going to steal it. Literature, and I think this came from our curriculum committee, but literature is a safe way to be exposed to very hard topics, especially when you have a certified professional, an educator, guiding and facilitating a discussion that could otherwise be very difficult. It is a great opportunity to learn in a very safe way. If it's uncomfortable, books can be closed. You can get your own space back. It is just, and again, we have people who can facilitate these discussions, are prepared to facilitate these discussions and know the intention that they're trying to get in terms of building the understanding of our students. Now, the other piece of this is, and I love and have to have conversations. I enjoyed my conversation with Donna because it's not what's really concerning me is that resources are being taken out of context, and know that when they're written into the curriculum, they're written into the curriculum for a very intentional purpose. So for example, you're talking about the honeybee books. They look at different texts on honeybees and they read 3 different texts on honeybees and look at what are similar about the text. How is the theme similar across the 3 books? How is it different across the 3 books? They're not good. So there's a very intentional purpose. And then they talk about biodiversity is one that one book mentions, but the other 2 don't. So that's one of the differences that they highlight in there. In terms of the 8th grade unit, that is a heavy topic and a big unit. The purpose of the internment book, which is actually something Kristen and I put in there, that is a structured read resource, is the purpose. They do a lot of power dynamics. They map out power dynamics. They look at societal pressures, peer pressure, all the different external pressures, as well as internal pieces. And so the key question for reading internment is, how do power dynamic sources and systems impact the character? This is a really critical life piece to understand. So really knowing how the resources are used, Phil mentioned it earlier too. Some resources, a book might be mentioned and it's only to show the cover because there's a very intentional purpose for that cover. So just know that this is why I was really stressed. Please reach out to me. I would love to have these conversations and talk you through the context of how these are used, and then really open to building that discourse. But I'm very, just really want everyone to know that the context is really important when we're talking about these resources.
Thanks, Erin. Kristen?
Said a lot of what I was going to say, but it's just as far as I was just responding to the resources. If you look at, I mean, I don't have the curriculum document in front of me right now, but I'm thinking about the 6th grade and where there might be some resources that where we'd have some conversations like Erin was talking about in a safe place. There's also excerpts from A Wrinkle in Time, which is a Newbery Honor winner. There's excerpts from When You Reach Me, which is also a Newbery winner. So that was, so that's 2 Newbery winners, 6th grade, 7th grade. There are short stories from a book called The Hero Next Door. And those are stories about just regular middle school kinds of, they're regular middle school kinds of, not even struggles. Like there was one of the stories is about a sports game. And some of the regular conflicts, and not even conflicts, or things that would happen during a sports game for a middle school student. So there are a lot of things that are in the curriculum that don't necessarily have to, are not sensitive conversations. There's a mix. I would say that there's a nice balance, and work hard, very, very hard to make sure there's a balance.
Thank you. Okay, so are we ready to move ahead? Do we have a motion on the floor?
I move that we vote to approve the ELA set 2. Is that what it's called? I don't have my agenda open.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. Additional comments, questions? Okay, we're going to do this just in the order of the screen rather than do it by voice vote, because I think we may not all be in alignment. So I want to make sure we only have to do this once. So Tracy, we'll start with you. Please say yay or nay if you are in support of the motion to approve the set 2 of the English Language Arts curriculum.
Yay.
Tracy? Laura?
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Brianna?
Yay.
Donna?
Nay.
Anne?
Okay,
Herb?
Nay.
And Michelle? Yes. Okay, so the motion passes 5-2. Just a reminder to please, if you have additional questions, it's really helpful to Erin and Kristen to be able to know what those questions are a week or so ahead of next month's meeting. Give them a chance to be able to look at the same page you're looking at. So if you have something specific, you've already got them in front of you. So sometime in the next 3 weeks, if you could send something over to Phil with what those questions are, it'll give them a little bit more time to be able to really look at the exact page you're referring to. Tracy?
Can I just add to that? At the committee meeting we had last time, we also, it is helpful to us as a committee when, after reading 250 pages and then having multiple units that we have in our heads, if Phil and Kristen and Aaron know ahead of time, they can bring up the parts that you're talking about where there are questions for any of us have questions or comments about, so that we can see what we're talking about again and bring it back to the front of our memory. It's really hard to go and back to, you know, the question that has to do with grade 4 unit, you know, page 3 for any of us. And it puts us on a spot and not able to be able to answer in a coherent way. So it would be very helpful in that manner too.
Thanks, Tracy. On a related note, on April 26th, you should already have this on your calendar, April 26th at 7 p.m. is our Zoom workshop meeting for not only the Board of Ed, but also the community and parents. This is a chance for us to have presentations about student assessment, how well our students are doing, where they need to do better. And we're going to have a chance. This is not going to be a regular meeting format. We'll have opportunities for people to submit questions in the chat, which you cannot do during a regular meeting, but we'll have that as well as question and answer after each of the sections. So I know that we've all wanted to dive more deeply into student assessment and how well our students are doing. The curriculum is the way in which we're going to address those questions, but to have a baseline for this conversation, I think would be really useful. And again, for the public who are listening to this, please be sure to tune in and participate with us on April 26th at 7 p.m. It'll be posted the way any other meeting is on the website. Okay, and with that, we are at present to speak again. We still have a virtual room full of people. If anyone who is on the call with us would like to comment, please come onto video or raise your hand using the reactions button so we can recognize you. Please also state your name and your address for the record. So if you'd wave your hand and let me know you want to speak, that would be great. Okay, Peter?
Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. I wanted to thank both Donna and Herb for addressing the concerns of the community tonight about some of the content in what's being described as your curriculum. I'm disappointed to hear all the hair splitting by the board on what should or should not be released to the general public. That it's a volume of material that's too much, or we would not understand the complexity of it. I urge you to simply make it available. Both what you're approving as our board, I think we have, as the voting public, the right to know that, as well as the secondary resources that are being utilized so the community understands what our school children are reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others present to speak? If you please come on camera. Jennifer Bowes, can you come off mute? There we go.
Oh, there I am.
Yep. If you could state your name and your address, please, to start for the record, that would be great.
Jennifer Bowes, 328 River Road. I personally am very much in favor of the curriculum. I've had 5 children go through the school system. I think that critical thinking is huge, especially in younger children. I have 11-year-olds right now at Hull School who has a learning disability. And if it wasn't for myself and the school reiterating this, he wouldn't be able to advocate for himself. And at 11 years old, when he has issues at school, he doesn't need me to handle it. He can articulate himself properly and advocate for himself. And me personally, that's what I want for my children. And it has to start at a young age. And if it doesn't start at a young age, when they leave Wellington and they go out into the real world, what do they have? It can't start later in life. As far as the diversity, I have adopted an African-American child. So my house is diverse. I taught that also at a young age. I don't feel that there's a lot of teaching diversity in this town. Trust me, we get a lot of stares when we have my child going around. That actually starts at home. And if it's not happening at home, then I love that the school is picking up on that and teaching that to these kids. It's important to learn different cultures and different backgrounds. Again, if it doesn't start at home, I have no problem with it starting at school. I think that's it. I have so many notes, but I'm tired.
Thank you. We can all appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else who's present to speak? Please come on the screen or raise your hand virtually via the reaction button. Okay, seeing none others, we will move to board. Oh, Jamie. Just got in under the wire. Jamie, can you unmute?
Hi there, Jamie Koprek on Common Road. I'm sorry I lost my voice a little bit, so I apologize in advance. I personally am a parent that would like to see the books of the curriculum. I understand it may be a lot of books, but that's for the parents to worry about. Like if they're just a list available, if it's too much information, if the kids may never read it. I personally would like to see that for my child. I mean, maybe if there's a topic that I think that my kid isn't mature enough yet for, I could ask the teacher not to allow him to read that particular book. I do think children develop differently at different ages and mature at different ages. And I think without being able to see the books, it's really kind of hard to determine what's appropriate and what's not. I mean, I have been in touch with Erin. She's been responsive. I did have one more email out, so I probably will join the meeting again next time to talk about that. But things have been going well with her, but it's just a little unclear. Some of the stuff, like where are the books coming from? Who, I mean, I know there's the Teachers College program, but where was that? It says the books are vetted, and then I was told they were then run through Common Sense Media. But a couple of books that we've seen that are a little controversial in the news lately, I have looked up on Common Sense Media, and they are being given to kids younger than even Common Sense Media recommends. And then also parents on Common Sense Media are also saying the books may be more appropriate for older kids. And that was a little unclear. Like, are we going by what Common Sense Media says, by what the parents think for some of the books? And I'm not saying that's happening in our town, but we don't know that as parents. I just want to be able to maybe look over them in my own time and just see what I think about it. I understand on Brianna's point about, you know, a lot of the curriculum stuff is in languages that most parents wouldn't understand, but I would like to be the one to say that I don't understand and then have a talking point to then speak to the teacher, because I am a new mom. I mean, this is my first child in a school system and I'm learning as well. And I just think if everything's transparent and out in the open, it gives talking points, it opens up a line of communication. I mean, there are really great teachers that we've experienced. Last year, my son did not have a great teacher. This year, his teacher is one of the most amazing humans I've ever met in my life. And I trust her, but I don't know that I'll always have that with every teacher. So I just think letting parents have a little bit of transparency, and I'm not saying you're trying to purposefully hide it, but just, you know, putting it out in the open, saying, here it all is, do with it what you will. I think it's fair. And I'm sorry to talk so much, but one real quick point. Mr. Stevens said he could keep a copy in his office, but like my husband and myself both work full time. Clearly we're already missing a lot of work with everything going on with COVID and colds and everything. It's just not always accessible for people to take time off from work to get those, to be able to sit there in the office and read stuff. So I agree with Donna. It would be wonderful. It was just updated periodically on there. And hey, if there's a book on there that we don't like and has since been removed, then great. If there's a book on there that we love and we want it to stay on there, we can reach out and ask for that. So, but I thank you all, and thank you, Erin, for emailing me back so quickly before, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Okay, moving on to board comments. Are you going to volunteer, or am I going to have to go through the screen and call people out to make their board comments? If you get to go first, you don't have to repeat what everybody else said. Up, and hands go up immediately. Anne and then Laura.
I just want to thank our folks that are leading, the hall band teacher and the Spanish teacher, and thank them for their time with us, and wish them good luck in their future endeavors. And also congratulate Amanda on her new position in the office.
Okay. Thank you. Laura?
So I'll add to that. But I also wanted to just really thank everybody, the teachers, the administrators, everything that you've been doing. Phil, when you went through everything you've been doing, I was trying to write it down and I couldn't write fast enough. So I have some of it, but working on the board goals, the portrait of the graduate, the curriculum, the policy, the ed specs, the contract negotiation, after school programs, PD, something else is there, I don't know, but just truly we appreciate all the hard work that you do. Just want you to know that. And honestly, I'm so tired. I can't quite think of anything else, but want to thank all the people who came out for this meeting also. It's so important for folks to know what's going on and come out to our meetings and express your views. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Who's next? Herb, go ahead.
I just want to underline what Laura said about the superintendent. That he goes a million meetings. He's worked on the policy committee, finance committee, and I don't know how many other building committees and curriculum. I don't know where he finds all the time to do it, but again, as Laura said, we appreciate your efforts, Phil.
Okay, Tracy, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I echo what's been said so far. Just a comment about the curriculum that we need to keep in mind, all of us, the public, as well as the board, that the curriculum is written for the teachers and the professionals, the people we trust to put it into practice. And so it is available. It will be available in Phil's office. You can look at it, but it's going to be a huge document that you could not digest in the amount of time, even one grade level, because we've only seen 3 parts of the ELA so far, and it's a lot to take in. That doesn't include all the other subject areas. So the best, most useful thing on the website would not be the entire curriculum, but the points of what we are trying to teach each year, so that parents, that's what is going to be more useful than that entire curriculum. And when we take into context the materials may not be familiar to those of us who've been through school before, because there's this, we're shifting away from what's called the white canon, the books that are written by the white male Americans, and we're moving into more diverse books by other people from other cultures, by women. And we're providing mirrors and windows for children to experience these things in a safe manner, as Erin said, where they can have safe discussions and understand what's going on in the world, so that when you do hear about the atrocities that are happening in Ukraine or other things that are going to come along, you can have some compassion for those people. Or maybe you know someone who comes from that culture, and now you see that mirrored in the book that you're reading in a safe way, and you can say, well, there is somebody out there that like me, or that's like someone I know. We have to in the portrait of graduate, we're talking about developing and applying an understanding of diverse cultures, identities, and perspectives to positively contribute to the community. That's what this curriculum is doing. We need to broaden our horizons so we can allow our children to broaden theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Donna, you're off video, so I can't tell if you want to say some final words.
Yes, and I know it's late, but I wrote something. So as I prepared for tonight's meeting, a quote from Dave Harding, one of our former superintendents, came to mind. Goal number 1 is to do no harm. So with that in mind, I respectfully request that anyone with small children in the room remove them or mute it so you can't hear what I'm about to say. And when I'm done, I will raise my hand so that you know I'm finished. Not long ago, I was contacted about a book the school gave to 10-year-old. And one of the first questions out of this individual's mouth was, what are you trying to groom our children for? For those of you who are unaware, Connecticut has a sex trafficking problem. As a matter of fact, when I went to a presentation, a beautiful young lady who resides in Holland was one of the victims. So before I go any further about the book specifics, let me be clear. I believe it is the job, the responsibility, and the right of parents and guardians to discuss and instruct their own children as to what and when they learn certain sensitive matters. I was advised that the book Lily and Duncan was given to a 10-year-old. And I'm telling you right now, this is uncomfortable for me to read. All right. So, but this is a portion of it. And to give you the setting, the character who is in the book is going into the 8th grade and is at the library. And this
Donna,
is,
can I ask first, is this a short passage?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
This is what the character says. After signing up for a computer, I research hormone blockers again. I need to be certain about the right time to start them. There's something called Tanner stage 2. That's when my boy parts start growing, when hair starts growing down there, when all the things I don't want to happen start happening. That's when I'm supposed to start the hormone blockers. That means I should be starting them now. It's not like I'm asking for estrogen or surgery yet. I just don't want to grow hair down there or get a bulging Adam's apple or a deep voice. Why can't my dad support me on this? And I can't imagine the turmoil the young character is going through, but I also feel that it is inappropriate for the school to put the book in the hands of the student. Certain things should be dealt with outside of school with a trusted adult and not with necessarily poor information about the lifelong repercussions. There is a reason that we can't serve in the military till we're 18. We're not supposed to drink until we're 21. And they've decided that kids are not developmentally able to be on their own health insurance till they're 26 because they just don't necessarily make good decisions. So these are serious matters that need to be taken seriously. And when I start getting phone calls, it concerns me. So I would just like to say that this is one of the reasons I am trying desperately to read everything that is in the curriculum. I know I will not read every single book that is provided to our students. But between this and another incident that was in the newspaper about Enfield, we just have to be vigilant. We have a lot of really awesome teachers, and I do not want to paint them with a brush that they don't care about our students, because I believe most of them do. But we just need to be vigilant. Thank you for your time.
I think, Brianna, you and I are the only ones who haven't given our last statements yet. Am I right? Yeah, okay.
I wanted to say that I think we did all of the 4 Cs during our meeting as a group, public included, so good job. I'd like to start by thanking our teachers and staff for guiding our students with the utmost care and professionalism. I believe in you. I am so sorry to see Tracy Canestrari go. Brings tears to my eyes every time it comes up. She has worked wonders with our musical program, our band program, before and during COVID interruptions and restrictions. And the clarinet in our home has never sounded better. So good luck to her. And I'm sure our family will take with us all of the lessons we have learned from her. Thank you. Muchas gracias to Joanny Alvarado for educating los niños. Maybe that's right. If not, please email me. I'm trying my best. And welcome to Mrs. Pilati. What a joyful thing it will be to hear her voice on the end of the phone there at Center School. And also, I just wanted to high five for increased enrollment. And I'm super excited to hear that we've got a bunch of new kindergartners joining our school system in the fall. That's going to be very exciting for them and for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to add a special thanks to both the administrators and the staff and the teachers. It takes a lot of people to make the schools work and to keep the schools safe. And we have a fantastic team that have come together to make this successful. And I do want to restate what Brianna said, that we trust you, that you're doing a great job. And we thank you for the amount of hard work. We know that none of you work only the hours that you are allotted, that you are thinking about these kids day and night and have their best interests at your heart. I hope that you all have a very restful April vacation because you've earned it. And with that, I move that we adjourn at 10:12.
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, everybody.